It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
Welcome in. It's Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio. Happy to be with you. I'm Jeff Parles. It's a football Friday, 2 hours. Vinny Magliulo, the best hair in the business. Chris Andrews.
What?
Wait. So you told? I heard you told that to
What's
Chris.
everybody laughing at?
last week.
What was so funny?
Oh, man. Chris Andrews, of course, the sportsbook director here at the South Point, alongside Vinny Gone Gaming. Both of these gentlemen, Hall of
God, we're
Famers.
so serious
as well. hey, I didn't say anything. I said a compliment in your hair, Vinny. I
Thank
didn't
you,
say
Jeffrey.
anything about
Thank
Chris.
you.
Yeah, what am I, chopped liver? I'm sitting right here, Jeff.
I love your hair.
I before we get into football, I do want to ask you real quick because we know
Yeah.
both championship series in baseball now. Prices on this, and I think I might have stumped Vincenzo here, Chris.
I don't.
2007, the Arizona
wow.
Diamondbacks, last time they were in the NLCS, they took on the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah.
They were swept in that series.
Ooh.
The game, someone tweeted out the lineups for Game 1 of the 2007 NLCS. Would you have remembered the pitching matchup in Game 1 being Jeff Francis versus Brandon Webb?
I would not.
I would not have either.
If I remember correctly, didn't the Rockies had won like 22 straight?
The Rockies in that September
Yeah.
won 19 out of 21.
Okay.
Got to the one-game playoff against the Padres. Matt Holliday still hasn't touched home plate in that game.
Yeah.
16 years later. And then they swept the Phillies. They swept the Diamondbacks. And then were swept by the Red Sox.
Red Sox
Yeah,
won
they
the
ran
World
into a
Series,
bus. I
right?
mean, it was like the Red Sox were going to win that World Series. I got a quick story about that. I was at the Golden Nugget at the time and working with Nick Bogdanovich. And we put, we made, when the Red Sox were down 3-0, we put up a price, a two-way price to win the series. And I can't even remember the guy's name. Well, one of my supervisors who was down in Laughlin calls me up. You're giving away money. You cannot do this. The Yankees cannot lose this
They
series.
can't blow that series.
Yeah, it's impossible. It's never been done before. And I kind of didn't like this guy, but I can't. I said, listen, they got Kurt Schilling pitching tomorrow. I think it was
Schilling was in Game 6. That
okay.
was the bloody
So
shit
they got
game. Yep.
Pedro.
And
They got Pedro. Then they got Schilling. Then they got Lowe. I mean, those three guys can't win 3 games. And then you go to Game 7. God knows anything can happen.
that was
And I remember that. And I remember telling my cousin Zach, and I'm not sure if Zach's superstitious or handicap, but he wound up making a big bet on the Red Sox to come back. I think he took 16-1 on them to win the series, and of course the rest is history.
that
Dave
was
Roberts,
that,
Dave Roberts with
Yep.
a big
The stolen base.
that was 2000, the
That was
2004
4.
ALCS. That was Derek Lowe, Pedro Martinez, Kurt Schilling, Derek Lowe.
Oh,
the
they
way
come
that
back
order-
with. I think Lowe pitched
Yeah.
maybe
Lowe
3
pitched
or 4 innings.
Low pitch Game 4 and 7.
Yeah.
Well, and
What did he pitch in Game 7? How many innings?
Game 7, he pitched well, but that game was over as soon as Damon hit the grand slam.
Yeah.
It could put him up 6-0 in the second inning.
Yeah.
Derek Lowe pitched 6 great innings in Game 7.
6 innings.
Pedro threw an inning out of the bullpen.
Yeah.
And Vinny, who finished the game for the Red Sox that day at Yankee Stadium?
Was it Wakefield?
It was not. He finished Game 5, though. Left-handed
Good.
reliever. Any guesses?
In 04?
04. Any guesses? Chris?
I can't think of it.
Alan
Uh,
Embry
Oh wow.
finished it off.
I know
you
this.
could have gave me 8
But
million guesses. And I want to
I
go
will
over
tell you,
that.
I remember this, that I think it was Bernie Williams.
Uh-huh.
So the Yankees were up 3 games to nothing. They were up in Game 4.
They were up a little.
And there was a
2 outs in the
ground
ninth.
rule
Yeah.
double that I just remember that. I'm thinking to myself, it rattled around. It went into the stands down in right field. And I thought to myself, because runners had to go back. It cost the Yankees a run.
Right.
The ground rule double. And I'm like, that's kind of curious. But it came back to harm. And then they.
I remember needing the Red Sox. So that
Yeah,
was,
no,
yeah.
look, that was at the back end of the Yankees' full powers.
Yeah.
Obviously, and that was it until they won in 09, and then they haven't been to the series.
I'll tell you.
Yeah,
what,
when they signed Costanza.
That's I see. George was teaching them how to hit. That's all.
We did win the World Series. Yeah, in 6 games.
By the way, Jimmy Vaccaro and I were guests of the Stardust on the Stardust line.
Oh, really?
That that year, and there was the contest. You remember you kind of went back and forth and things like that. So Jimmy and I spent most of the night telling stories, and shocking,
Yeah.
and gave out. It was ridiculous. You had to make. I think we gave out not only college football winners, but the Red Sox to come back in the series, and De La Hoya, Oscar De La Hoya had a fight.
Wow,
that
who was he
weekend.
fighting? Jeez.
It wasn't Chavez because both of those fights were in. That might have been Chavez. It was September, October. It might have been.
Looking it up for
Maybe
you right now,
Camacho?
Vinny. September 18th, 2004.
Was it?
He lost to Hopkins.
Yep, that was
Lost
it.
to Hopkins.
Yep,
De La Hoya.
Hopkins had a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Well,
Good
I didn't
stuff.
expect to start with story time, but I always love doing story time
Good stuff.
out the gate here. But
You
prices.
asked about the prices.
Yes, the prices for these series. The Lone Star State Showdown beginning on Sunday on the American League side, and then the Phillies, the 4-seeded Phillies, have home field.
They've
The
been playing great
NLCS.
ball, though.
Oh,
they,
Chris, I said this to Vinny
Yeah.
at the beginning of the postseason. I thought it was the two best teams in baseball playing each other in that DS, and the Phillies were the ones who emerged against Atlanta.
Yeah, boy. I mean, they're playing great. I mean, they're a big favorite over the Diamondbacks. We're running them $1.85 here at South Point. And by the way, I'm looking here. We have the tightest straddles
Yes, you do.
anywhere. Period.
20 cents.
Yeah, I mean 20 cents. And then on the games, again, we use dime line all the way up to $1.60. Tightest straddles anywhere. And we talk about it all the time. If you're a baseball bettor, how can you not bet at the South Point? You know, you're what's the word I want to say? You're not being loyal to your own bankroll if you don't bet here. Yeah, and we got the World Series exacta too.
There it is.
Vinny just pulling out that sheet. Again, the exact scenario. So Astros beat the Phillies plus 375. Astros beat the Diamondbacks 7-1. Rangers beat the Phillies 8-1. Rangers beat the Diamondbacks 9-1. Phillies beat the Astros plus 380. Phillies beat the Rangers 11-2. So 5.5 to 1.
550. Yep.
Diamondbacks beat the Astros 10-1. Diamondbacks beat the Rangers 14-1. And let me just go on record saying that would be a thing of beauty. Diamondbacks beating the Rangers. That would be a really good result.
That'd be a great result for you. I would imagine the Diamondbacks knocking out the Phillies, regardless of the result in the World Series, would probably be the best result for you guys, right?
That
Or is-
doesn't
or is
matter that
Houston,
much.
right?
No,
Doesn't matter
that
now?
doesn't matter. No,
Right.
no.
You're pretty balanced.
Yeah, we're okay. The pennants are not a big deal. But I was just checking. We had Mr. Gone back in the office. What's the best scenario? And I'm not going to announce it here, but I said, well, if the Diamondbacks win, I guess we're rooting for Arizona. Yes, we are, Mr. Gone.
I would imagine. Did Mattress Mac come through and bet the Astros at the shop this year or no?
Not with us.
didn't see
And
him.
that's when we get to story time at some point, we'll kind of talk about that. He started betting with us.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we put him on for like 300,000-400,000, but he just, listen, we don't have sports books all throughout America. He wants to bet 15 million. We just can't handle that in one little book. Well, actually, we got a couple. We got the Rampart, which is a very nice book.
Sure is.
Two of them in Mesquite that do some very good business. But we don't have places in Jersey and Colorado and New York and all over the country.
Not yet.
We just-
Not yet.
Not yet.
There you go. Well,
Vinny, always the optimist.
let's go to college football tonight, guys, because I don't want to even acknowledge the existence of whatever that was in Kansas City last night. But it did land 11, which
Yeah, it did.
was that a siding for you guys or no?
That's
No,
what it
not really.
opened.
And I know it
but
opened
didn't-
11, that's
it
what I'm
didn't-
asking.
Yeah, just
Yeah, it wasn't-
only a little bit.
Only a little,
Yeah.
nothing too bad.
I've seen
There-
worse.
there-
I've seen worse sightings.
There will be one game that we get to in the NFL
Yeah.
that you don't want landing 3. That would be a lot worse if that landed
Yeah.
3.
Oh, one? We
Wait,
got,
wait
we might have a
second. What do you
couple.
mean
Yeah.
one? how much can we get on the over one?
Yeah.
A lot, I
Yeah.
would say. All right, let's go to tonight. First game on the board, 121, 122 on your betting cards. Memphis, Tulane in Memphis. This is actually a pretty good game.
This is a great card
Pretty
tonight,
good
Jeff.
game here in the American. Chris, the bettors have laid it with the wave, and they have continually laid it all
Yeah.
week long.
I'm looking on my charts here. They laid 3, 3.5, and 4. I finally jumped to 5 after that, but that's the side that they're on tonight. I'm trying to look what I'm okay with it. I made the game Tulane 2. So, I mean, I'm not listen, they'll kick off, and I'll be rooting for Memphis, and that's okay with me, Jeff.
I think total also came under, which I think will come back up, particularly with Memphis involved. People, Memphis typically gets their games typically get bet over, but Tulane draws a lot of business. So, right, Chris? I mean, every week Tulane is one of the more popular non-Power 5 games that draws betting attention. So positioned nicely tonight. I love these Friday cards. The Friday night cards, right, Chris?
I like the Thursday card. Yeah. I don't like Thursday pro football. I don't like that. I just think, and that's, I don't want to say yesterday was typical. It's not typical, but there's a lot of times we see teams that are just totally unprepared.
Oh.
And last night was
Denver
that.
Denver was not prepared to play in that game last night?
Or calling timeout with 18 seconds of play in the first half to punt. That was
cost them 3 points. Actually, might have even cost them the game when it was all said.
Yeah, who knows? But
I totally sleptwalked.
But to Vinny's point about Tulane, first of all, do you know they were in the SEC many years ago?
Way.
Yeah, and they left the SEC. They thought that was
say it.
That was a loser's hand. What?
Before his time.
Come on.
Vinny, that's before our time too. I think I don't think we were born yet.
I was trying to get us a little younger.
We got. But they thought it was a loser's hand to be confined to a conference. They went independent, and they were bad for a long time. But the last couple of years, they've really come back. And our old friend Sean King played for Tulane. I still talk to Sean. I like Sean a lot. He's a good guy.
The best team in program history until last year.
Yeah,
for
right.
Tulane.
Last year was a very good year.
Last year, of course, a Cotton Bowl win.
Yeah.
Still don't know how they won that game against USC, but crazy things happen.
That's called football, Jeff. Crazy stuff happens.
100%. Well, speaking of crazy stuff, that was a great loss I had on West Virginia last night. Oh. That was pretty good, right?
Well, I think I told you I was out with a bunch of guys, and there's 4 of us, three degenerate gamblers. I'm not calling myself. So 2 degenerate gamblers, me, a bookmaker, and one guy doesn't even know what a football looks like. But the guy knew I needed Houston. He says, "Oh man, West Virginia scored. What was it? 18 seconds.
12
left?
seconds.
12 seconds.
Because West Virginia's watching on the internet. West Virginia scored. I said, "Oh wow, it's gonna be a rough night for the home team here." And then he says, "Wait a second! Houston scored on the last play of the game."
It was the one of the worst Hail Mary throws I've ever seen. It was a straight line drive, and it still found the way.
Just got tipped properly.
Found the way.
There were only like 15.
There were only 20 people within 1 yard of each other for sure. Of course, Houston winning that game outright as a small underdog at home last night. All right, Stanford and Colorado. Hey, Coach Prime in prime time again. Look at this. Chris, 12.5 now you got on this one, 59 the total. This is a toggler. This has been a toggler all week long on some numbers that you don't normally see toggled on.
11.5 and 12. I got action both ways. That's another one. I made the game. Let me find my notes here. I made the game 13, but kind of like Colorado a little bit. And the number opened 11.5 mostly, and I opened at 12 just to be a little bit ahead of the market. So the first guy in took the 12.
Mm-hmm.
But since then, they laid back 11.5, and they laid back 12, so I'm up to 12.5. A lot of action on this game. It'll be the late game tonight, and I think this is going to be a pretty good betting game. I wouldn't be surprised if we wind up at 13 on this one. The public loves to bet Colorado. And Stanford, they just last couple of years haven't been so good. I mean, it's hard to recruit. Mm-hmm. They're not involved in much of the NIL, not involved in the transfer portal. And, listen, I don't want to say it's hurt their program. Stanford is one of the great universities in the world, but, football-wise, it hasn't helped them in football.
I think they're going to be more a Colorado money. Hunter's back.
Looks like he's going to play tonight. Yep.
I mean, they're getting healthier, and obviously he's their best player. Especially since he goes both ways. So
he's their best player.
I think that's going to contribute to Chris's point about this game getting to at least 13.
Yeah, no feel whatsoever for this one. Dion complaining about the night kickoffs. Oh, I got some news for you, Dion. You're going to have all the night kickoffs in the Big 12 next year. So it's going to be a very normal scene of that 7:15 in Boulder moving forward.
I'm not so sure he's complaining without a little wry smile, though, right?
I can't argue.
But he's
with
brought
you.
attention to a conference that's
well,
really in the mix, man.
well,
that's for sure.
And not only that, last week with their win over Arizona State, they went over their season win total at most shops.
Yeah.
I know you guys this year had conference win totals.
Conference
yet again.
wins. That's just something
Colorado
we do.
was what, 1.5 in the conference win totals?
I think
I think we were
at
2.
Yeah,
We were
2 and even 2. Okay,
Yeah.
so they need 2 more. In
And by
order
the
to
way,
get
they
over.
bet me on all these
And they
guys.
bet you under, yeah.
I knew Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't show up with money.
No,
I
they
can
bet
tell
you
that,
under.
you know.
Of course, of course. Hey, look, the loudest aren't always the smartest. You know that, Chris.
Of course.
Know that for a fact. All right, let's go to Fresno State and Utah State here. Interesting game here in the Mountain West. Fresno, of course, losing outright last week. Now they go to Logan Vinny, 6-5, 4.5, 5 here on this one now.
Yeah, and under money too, right? Showing Jeff. So they took the points with the home team. Not really surprising that the home team's drawn, betting attention here, taking everything down. They got as low as 4.5 at one point, and now back up. So finding the buyback threshold, but the total down, Chrissy, by a couple of points off the 57 opener.
Yeah, they took it down, but they laid me back to 4.5. I'm up to 5. I made the game 6. It's not a big deal one way or the other. But again, this is a really good card for a Friday night. I think we're going to do a lot of action.
And they already have done a lot of business on these games.
Yeah, we've done a lot of business. We have no baseball obviously today, but we got some good hockey matchups, and sometimes you wonder how's the schedule going to turn out? How's everything going to look? And with these games coming up, we're going to have a pretty good night.
Yeah, 2 in the NHL tonight. Marquee matchup is the Penguins on the road in D.C. to take on the Caps.
That was a hard loss.
Not a good one. Not a good one on opening night.
A friend of mine texted me, said, this is typical of last season. Have an early lead and blow it.
And to a team that's not
seems
good
like the
either.
whole season,
But one of the older team, right? They have Eric Carlson now on the blue line, which
Okay, that's going to help.
But also they have Riley Smith from here too. But these are, the Pens got a little bit. They're a little long in the tooth compared.
Okay,
to
let me
some
tell you
other
another
teams,
problem.
right?
They're size-wise, they're the smallest team in the NHL.
Yeah.
So they're old and small. That's not a great
not a good
combination in
combo.
hockey.
Ouch.
Not one bit. All right, let's go to college football tomorrow. Rotation number order for all these games as always. Sorry, Eastern Michigan and Kent State. We're gonna skip over you and go to Maryland and Illinois. Boy, if you had the Terps last week, yikes in that one. No business not covering, and Ohio State covered basically all numbers when it was all said and done. Now they're back at home. They take on Illinois, who stinks. And boy, I thought Illinois was going to be a totally reasonable team this year. Just not happening for the Illini, Chris. But the bettors have bet Illinois this week from 14.5 as low as 13 back to 13.5 right now.
Where are we at? We're at 13.5. Yeah, they took a little bit, and Illinois was one of my big disappointing teams. I really thought Bielema had this team pointed in the right direction. I thought they were going to build on last year. It just did not happen. I really missed the boat on them. I kind of like Maryland in this game. I think the number's maybe a shade cheap. Like I made it 14.5. Not like if I was out playing, I'd go lay the 13.5 because I'm getting so much value. But I kind of like them. I like Maryland a little bit in this game. But this is another good betting game so far.
Tough one. Let's kind of last week mirrored last season, right? Same thing against the Buckeyes. Great first half. In fact, I think last year they had the lead. This year they were tied. It's hard to believe they didn't cover, Jeff. But I think there'll be some Maryland money either overnight. Yeah. Don't forget here at South Point, 24-hour book, not just with the app, but live action as well. So I suspect there'll be some Terrapin money showing.
Maryland, again, 13.5-point favorites, and now one Big Ten matchup, 3:30 Eastern local time in College Park. 2 at the ACC next. Duke, 3-point favorites against NC State. Of course, Riley Leonard not going to play with that injury that he suffered at the end of the Notre Dame game. But right now, there you go. There's one of those 3 togglers. There's togglers, 3.5, 3 here.
We just went back to 3.5.
There you go. You just don't want anything but Duke by 3 is okay.
Yeah, a lot of business on this game. I don't know how much Leonard's going to mean in a game like this. I don't know. But I'm not too much aware of the backup quarterback. But I do know Duke is a program that's been building. I know they kind of want to be the Stanford of the ACC, not Stanford of today, but Stanford when they had Andrew Luck and things like that. And I think they have a chance to do that. They are in the South, and the academic standards are pretty high. But still, I think they have a chance to really make a mark in college football, and I think that they are pointed in the right direction. I think his number's a little bit cheap.
Yeah, two-way action. Chris, you hit it on the head. Just again, you don't want the favorite to win the game by 3, to where we refund all the home team on 3 and pay the underdog at 3.5. But again, overall, two-way action, good betting game.
I got news for you. I got another one of these togglers next.
And here you go.
Here we go.
What do we got?
Back to back.
131, 132. A&M at Tennessee. Texas A&M, boy, what a. Oh, Jimbo, not good. Not good at the end of the game.
I think his record's the same, or maybe worse than Sumlin's when he got fired.
Yeah, it's worse right now than when Sumlin got canned. And you're gonna have to start winning some of these games against these better teams if you don't want this to be totally
doesn't he
embarrassing.
Have
he has the lifetime contract.
I was just going to say.
Don't want this to be totally
doesn't he have
embarrassing. He has the lifetime contract.
I was just going to say,
now.
right? Yeah.
All the money's guaranteed. He's got the greatest agent in the history of agents. No arguing that. But they go to Knoxville, Neyland Stadium for this one. Tennessee's a 3-point favorite. This has toggled between 3.5 and 3, back to 3 now.
Yep.
Total's 54.5. I already laid 3 with Tennessee. I just think they're a better football team, and their offense has figured it out.
I think when you look at this game too, you wonder about A&M's psyche, right? Especially every year, it seems that Alabama, kind of ruins their position, ruins their entire season. So you wonder how they're going to rebound here in what's going to be a terrific environment for the home team. But it's the same thing as last game. We talked about it. Two-way action again, hoping that that the game does not fall 3 in favor of the Vols here, right, Chris?
Yeah, I made the number 4, so I don't really have a strong opinion on this game at all. But I tell you something, you just have to kind of watch out for. I knew Tennessee was going to be down a little bit this year. They lost a lot from last year, and last year they jumped up pretty good. And I think that's another team. They're ascending the ladder, and it's just not a straight climb. You go up and down and up and down. But I think they're on the right trajectory. But you have to worry about a team like A&M. They were. I said that about the Cowboys. Well, they're the best team every June. Well, it's kind of the same thing with Texas A&M. Every June, they're going to challenge for a national championship. Mm-hmm. At some point, do these kids quit on the coach? And I don't know the answer to that, and I'm not saying they will or they have or anything like that. But you have to kind of watch out for that because I think right now, are they a good team? Yeah, they're a good team. But are they disappointing? Yes, they're very disappointing. And I think those kids understand that they have disappointed their fans and themselves.
Yeah, definitely been a disappointment yet again. I didn't buy the hype this year. Just one of those. Show me it, please. Yeah. At some point you got to produce, and they just haven't under Jimbo. And again, greatest contract ever for Jimbo. He's not going anywhere.
I think it's $90 million, if I remember correctly.
More than that now, yeah.
What's it, fourth or fifth year? At least 4th, maybe 5th.
You're 4.
These are all his. That's just it.
They're his kids. Yeah, they're
his kids for 2 years.
That's it. So,
yeah. Let's go to the Seminoles and the Orange. Boy, reality has slapped Syracuse in the face pretty quickly.
Hello, schedule.
Yeah. Syracuse pummeled by Clemson 2 weeks ago. Even worse pummeled last week by UNC. Now they go on the road to Tallahassee, so it's not getting any easier for Babers and company. Chris, 18 to 17.5, now 18.5 as we sit right now.
Yeah, again, I don't have any opinion on this game, but I can tell you I'm doing great business on this one. A lot of opinions, which I love. I don't have a strong one. Anywhere the bettors want to take us, I'll be okay with. It's an early start. We should be one of those games that gives us a nice little head up on the day for tomorrow. Should be a good game. I don't know. I mean, I guess I made 19. That's again the numbers right there. But I don't know. I think Syracuse can score, and I think maybe the back door is going to be open a little bit for them. So I don't know. But this should be a fun game to watch.
Did dip below the 18 opener just for a bit, but now up to 18.5. And by the way, in real time, we just went to 54 on the total, which is down a couple of points off of the opener.
Yeah, and absolutely, I'm with Chris. I'm fascinated to see this game has as much opinion as it has. I have no idea on this number, even at the bigger number for Syracuse. I want nothing.
Because Florida State's been up and down too, and that's another team. I mean, I still think they have a chance to win a national championship, but they have shown to be very flawed, like pretty much everyone on the college football landscape.
100% wide open. It
really
hasn't
is.
been this wide open in a long time.
I wish we had a 12-game play. First of all, I wish we had a 16-game playoff, but that's another.
12 would be beautiful.
12 would be great this year.
Yeah, Florida State. I mean, Florida State's going to be favored in every game the rest of the way, including the ACC title game. They have a grasp on one of those 4 college football playoff spots. If they go 13-0, I would be shocked if they are left out, especially.
They would deserve.
Yeah,
it depends on who else is in there, but I would be very surprised.
It would be very surprising. It would take a lot to leave a 13-0 Florida State team out. It would probably mean Georgia, Michigan, or Ohio State, or Penn State for that matter. The Pac-12 champion and Oklahoma all going 13-0 to KO Florida State. That Oklahoma 13-0 is not happening. I feel pretty confident on saying that, even with the win last.
Well, I'll tell you what, and I love the Pac-12. I think there's some great football out there, but it's going to be tough to go 12-0 in that conference.
100%.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And we'll get to one of the reasons why in a few minutes.
We'll get to an unbelievable game in Seattle a little later. All right, Chris, I want to put these games together because you and I talked about this before the show, and I'm a little surprised at this.
So am I.
3 SEC East games this week. Missouri at Kentucky, which could still be the battle for second in the SEC East. Kentucky's 2.5. Florida at South Carolina. South Carolina's 2. And then the Georgia Bulldogs, all the way at the bottom of the card, are 32-point favorites in Nashville this week against Vanderbilt. And Chris, you have nothing here.
I told you before the show, I'm charting just like a couple dime bets. You know what I mean? I want a little significance in some way or another. I got nothing on any of these 3 games. And, I mean, listen, Georgia, I can understand. You don't want to lay a big number,
Sweat and Vandy plus 32 does not sound like a fun day.
But the other 2 games are really good games. Yeah. We're talking about 2.5 point spreads. It should be, they're telling you right there, it should be exciting football, but I got no business on them at all.
I mean, and Kentucky with their first loss, right, and convincingly against Georgia. By the way, everybody was waiting when we'd see Georgia or the Georgia that was expected, and we did see them. But so Missouri as well, right, Jeff? I mean, these are two teams with only 1 loss. It's going to be interesting to see how they rebound, right, from recent losses here. More movement on the total, though. To Chris's point, total open 52.5, 53. It's down a couple 2.5 points. So actually, the numbers right there where it started at 2.5. Cats favored.
Yeah, I have no feel for any of those 3. The only thing in those games that I somewhat like is the total in Florida and South Carolina.
50.5.
Yeah, I liked it over 50. It was 50 for about a day. That would be the only thing that stands out. And there are, again, as you mentioned, Chris, there are much better ways to spend your Saturday evening than sweating out the Commodores getting all those points against Georgia.
Oh, yeah. You just want that clock to keep running.
Just keep going. Let's
keep
go.
Running.
Stop the game at 17-0 midway through the second quarter on that one.
Don't watch.
Yeah. No,
don't look.
That is a 100%. I'll check the score after the game if I would take Vandy in that one. All right, Michigan's back in action, and they are gigantic favorites this week in conference play against the Hoosiers of Indiana. But, Chris, they have taken the Hoosiers in this one from 34 down to 33. And, again, I love this. 33-point favorites, 46 total.
Yeah, I know.
Game.
So when they took the 34 off me, and ordinarily I move games like at a point. In my brilliance, I only moved it half a point. So they took the 33.5 as well. So, right now I'm a Michigan fan tomorrow. But it is one of those funny games. Boy, I wish I did the potential scores, and I have that one. Oh, where am I? Yeah, I have it 39 to 6.5 is the way my numbers come up with.
Okay.
That's if the extra point only goes halfway.
Doink or a half.
It's the crossbar.
39 to 6.5 is what I got.
Counts as a half.
That's great.
That's Australian rules football,
That's right.
Vinny.
No,
Come
well,
on.
what,
Yeah. They got in a raincoat.
I love that guy.
By the way, just real quick on these, you have your props, of course, for this week.
Yeah. Good lead in, Jeff.
Michigan is the short shot to score the first touchdown in the 9 a.m. Pacific slate. Them in Georgia, 5-1. And as always, I just have to say this:
You have to.
Time of game, not time of day.
Not time of day.
Does not matter that if Michigan scored their touchdown at 10-11 and Iowa State somehow at 60-1 scores their touchdown at 7 past. If Michigan does it quicker in the game, it's Michigan, guys.
Yeah,
just remember that.
Time on the clock.
I want you to know that I'm glad that you mentioned it as well, because inevitably every week there's at least one person who comes up with,
Oh, yeah.
what the time it is.
It was 9:06. It was 9:06. Yeah, I get that.
I get it. That's good. Thank you. Appreciate that. Is that digital or is Naval Observatory time? What do you got there? That's not.
By the way, Vandy the long shot, 200-1 this week.
Yeah.
So
you better hope for a kickoff return.
I will tell you this. 100-1 on Purdue. There are worse 100-1 bets to be made.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they nailed me a couple weeks ago with Rutgers at 200-1.
Yep.
You'd have thought that guy won the lottery.
He basically did, though.
He had a $20 bet. He was, and I think it was, I want to say bet like Frank should be here. I think the guy bet $13.
Oh, there we go.
Like he hit the lottery.
I think that's what. I hear Ann back there laughing. Yeah, I think that's what he bet. $13.
That's great.
He knew what it meant. He knew.
He knew it wasn't.
He was a smart guy. He was smartest of everybody.
Time of game.
Oh, man. All right, let's go another 9 a.m. And I mentioned Iowa State, and here they are. Iowa State at Cincinnati. Hey, this is your Big 12 conference game, guys.
Of course.
As everyone intended. Cincinnati opened 5, down to 4.5. The total's what's been hit here, and that is not a shock with the way that Iowa State's defense has played, except for that game against OU. 45 down to 42.5 in this one.
Yeah, I'm running the game 4.5. I got bet pretty strong on the dog. I think the total coming down probably had a lot to do with the handicap. Again, I made the number a little bit higher. I made it 6. But we're not. You got to move with your business. I'm at 4.5. I see pretty much a blank at 5, so I'm the only 4.5 out there. I'm looking for a bet on the favorite. So, if you do like Cincinnati, this is the place to come. So I could use a play on them.
Yeah, at 42.5, you mentioned the defense, Jeff. But a couple of weeks ago, right, too, I think it was a couple of weeks ago where one of their, that turned into a higher scoring affair. It was the
Iowa State-Oklahoma State game that had the total in the mid-30s, ended up at 61.
And it was like, by before halftime, it was you were cruising. So every now and then it does surprise you. But I think until there's some consistency there, with that offense, we're going to continue to see under money.
I will say this. I'm a little bit surprised, just obviously with the way that Cincinnati has been power rated so far this year. I really don't think they're a good football team. I thought Houston's the only one in that conference who is worse than them, despite what happened last night. And I was a little bit surprised to see this number out there, even your market low 4.5 with the rest of it 5. I'm a little surprised. Which probably means Cincinnati wins this game by 2 touchdowns.
Right.
But regardless, the Bearcats, their best win, they beat Pitt. It's been clear that Pitt is not any good this year.
Yeah.
So
talk about a team with quarterback problems.
Oh, goodness. Wow. Yeah. I kind of stunned at how bad Jerkovich has been so far this year.
Incredibly bad. Incredibly bad. A school like Pitt couldn't get a better quarterback. But what's Iowa State, though? Jeff?
No, that's true. To me, Iowa State is in that middle of the Big 12 where there are, Texas, Oklahoma, those teams are really good.
Yeah.
Kansas with a healthy Jalen Daniels, they're a legitimate top 20 team in the country. With Bean, they're probably in from that 25 to 35.
K-State's pretty legit.
K-State, even though they had a really ugly loss a week ago,
they have,
still a pretty darn good team and a well-coached team.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole bunch of mediocrity in that league after those top 4 this year.
Yeah.
I don't care West Virginia was 2-0 in conference. That team not any good either.
Somebody pointed out, when we look back at TCU playing in the championship, and forget the score, because, they deserved to be in the final. They deserved it. But what an aberration that's going to be for that school. Because, I mean, they've been 6-6. All of a sudden, they're in the national championship. And they're back to being that same kind of a mediocre team this year.
That program has had two massive aberrations. Because, of course, they had that Rose Bowl win against Wisconsin with Andy Dalton at quarterback.
Right.
And then they have that last year where they're somehow in the national championship game despite being about the 10th best team in the country. But they earned it last year. They won all their close games.
Yeah, I mean, they played horribly in the game, but they still earned their shot of being there.
They deserve to be there.
Absolutely.
Now, different in competition, obviously, with Georgia. But, hey, Georgia was so much better than everyone else last year.
Bears watching long term because, again, we talked about Iowa State and Oklahoma State, for example. Some teams are being negatively impacted by the transfer portal. And with Texas and Oklahoma leaving the conference, and, obviously a reforming of the Big 12, too, it's going to be interesting to see what type of recruits and how the transfer portal is going to work for not only these two schools that we're talking about, but really the remainder of the conference. Bears watching long term.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I really thought when A&M joined the SEC, I thought, boy, they are, and I fell for it. They got the right coach. You get to recruit Texas kids to go play in the SEC. I mean, you're playing with a winning hand right there, and they've been nothing but disappointing. No, so you just don't know how this stuff's going to turn out. It's going to be so interesting. And I am a traditionalist in a lot of ways, but I'm also into interesting. And this is going to be interesting with Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC.
Yep.
It's going to be interesting to have UCLA and USC in the Big Ten.
And Oregon, Washington.
And Oregon, Washington, too.
Ten, yeah.
All this is interesting, and I like interesting, but I'm kind of weighing the two things. I like tradition, but I like interesting. But it's definitely going to be interesting.
I'm just a big fan of being able to say Rutgers and UCLA is a conference game. I mean, that's just great to me. I mean, throw out the record books.
Oh, no doubt, yeah.
But I will
nice
say,
road trip.
I will say with the Big 12, because you bring up a really good point. Like everyone is seeming, because of the Big 10 expansion and the Pac-12 disintegrating, you've been all the eyeballs have been on the teams going to the Big 10. You think Utah's style is going to give teams fits in the Big 12? Absolutely.
Sure.
That's going to be a really difficult team for those higher flying offensive teams to play against. So that
I remember
also
being
Coach Prime goes there. So
I was on a podcast, and I think I was talking about Iowa State. This is years. I think when Campbell was really good. And I said, well, they got the best defense in the Big 12, which is kind of like being the valedictorian of summer school. And I stole that line from somebody, and I can't remember who, but it was a great line.
You don't remember who you stole it from? Take credit for it then. You got it.
I mean, it's not like he copyrighted it or anything,
Well, speaking of a potential valedictorian of summer school, Mario Cristobal and the Miami Hurricanes on the road in Chapel Hill this week.
Yeah.
After
Phi Beta Kappa.
Absolutely unfathomably blowing that game to Georgia Tech last week because of the refusal to just sit on the ball. They fumble. Georgia Tech goes 70 yards in 18 seconds, somehow wins that game as a 3-touchdown dog. And now Miami gets the reward of playing Drake May this week. But, Chris, the folks have been betting Miami here in this game.
On Miami.
From 4-3 on this one.
In the beginning of the year, and Vinny and I were kind of going over our numbers, our power ratings, and I can't remember exactly what Vinny said, but I remember saying that there was a lot of talent on this Miami team. I remember saying, I don't like Cristobal.
The coach.
But I think Vinny may have pointed out, they actually have some pretty good assistant coaches. Well, I don't know where they were last week.
Didn't help them with that.
They were ignored.
Yeah, they might have had
completely ignored.
They might have had tape over their mouths or something. But I still think everything we said about that is true. There's a lot of talent. I don't like Cristobal. I don't know that much about the assistant coaches to make a strong valuation one way or the other. But I don't know. But I am surprised the money's showing on Miami. There's no doubt it is though.
I don't know how college kids can recover, even though it wasn't their fault.
I know.
I don't know how you recover from that.
You hit a key point in my opinion. Now, when the quarterback, listen, credit the players for coming out to it's usually the other way around when you think about when something bizarre happens.
Yeah.
Let's say a quarterback, throws a late interception, fumbles the ball, whatever. In this case, it's usually the coach that comes to the aid of the player.
Right.
Mhm.
How
It was
about the players
Yeah.
coming to the aid of the coaches and the head coach? And you're sitting there, wait a second. You wonder the psyche of this team. Personally, I think there's going to be North Carolina money tomorrow. We're down to 3, open 4. I would be surprised. Again, I'm not saying that they're going to win. Who's going to win the game? We're not in the prediction business, Chris, Jimmy, and I. But I have to believe that there'll be some support for North Carolina here. What bears watching is how Miami recovers from this. From what happened last week psychologically.
How do you address your team if you're Cristobal?
I don't know.
Whether
I
it's
really
Sunday
don't.
morning, Monday morning, whenever your next team meeting is, how do you address them? I mean, it was just such a screw up. You know,
Horrible.
I mean,
One of the worst things of malpractice you're ever going to see from any coach at any level. And cost them a game in the end. And again, Drake May is awesome. We saw it again last week. He
Sure
just
is.
torched
Perfect.
Syracuse's defense. Him and Caleb Williams are going 1-2 in the draft. More likely than not, unless if the Bears own that second pick and go Williams and Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
But boy, what a player Drake May is, and I expect him to have his way. Mostly because I don't think Miami recovers from what happened last week. I just don't see
I made
how
the
you do
number
it.
6, so I mean that's
There you go.
again,
Right
I'm
now,
leaning that way.
right now, 3 on UNC. All right, Chris, you and I brought this up, this game before the show, and you said it was the biggest action game of the week.
Yeah.
And as we all expected, in week 7 of college football, the biggest action game of the week here at the South Point is Georgia Southern at James Madison.
Notre Dame, USC,
Forget that.
Washington, Oregon.
No.
Jeff, you wanted to pass over this game. I said, "Whoa,
No, I
hang
can't.
on a
I couldn't
second.
do it.
What were you thinking, Jeff? Come on.
You have to change glasses.
I
It's
have
so
to put on
important.
because I got so many notes. I mean, I'm trying to read all my
Might need
notes
its own
on this
segment.
game.
This game might need its own segment. Its own
I
show.
can't even read all my own writing. The James Madison. They laid me 4 all the way up to 6.5.
Mhm.
Georgia Southern, they took 6 all the way down to 4. I mean, this is like every step of the way. I got business. This is crazy. It is on ESPN 2. Okay. All right.
Why is it at 9? Can we
Seems
get it flexed out from 9 a.m.,
Yeah.
Chris?
Seems like there's a lot of 9 a.m. competition in that window. Well, and where am I at with this game right now?
You're at 6.
6 right now.
I'm at 6.
Back
I
up
mean,
to 6.
you look at this game. I mean, how am I doing so much business on this game? But it's just incredible. I'll tell you what, though. This year, it seems like there's a lot of opinions on James Madison, one way or the other. And this is a prime example, for and against. And I just right now, well, I don't think it has more money than the Notre Dame or the Washington game, but it's probably my 3rd highest bet game this
Crazy.
week.
But again, this can happen, though. That's what a lot of people were.
That's what the number is for, to
exactly.
stimulate action. But boy, I'm stunned that and I made the number 4.
Yeah.
So it's not like I made it 13 or the other side the favorite. So I mean, I thought 4 was like okay. 6 to 4 in a college game isn't that big of a difference.
No.
But the action on this game has just been unbelievable.
Not surprising. I think a little support to the over, or almost
Not surprising
almost
on
at
that.
60. So I think that'll continue to climb. Typically a game like this would be more professional money, right, Chris?
Yeah.
I know.
There's some big play here.
And it is for the most part. But as we get further along into this expansion of sports betting, and everything, people realize that there's an opportunity for these types of games. These not your traditional powerhouses,
Non-premium games.
to get involved. And again, here you have a 9 o'clock game that's one of the highest handled games of the year. Oh, and by the way, it's not one of the games you would think, and not one of the Power 5 conferences.
Jeff was going right over the game. You don't have anything on this,
Oh,
right?
I just brought it up. It's like, not so fast, my friend.
We were in the studio before. I said, wait a second, let's go to the office. And I got to say, we'll get behind that computer a little bit. There'll be some surprises, and sure enough.
But, it is funny. Seriously, you get guys say, well, that's I don't know. That's a terrible game. Really? Terrible game? Put some money on it and see how terrible it is. And
right.
you see if you want to start watching it.
I actually am excited for that one because those are 2 good teams
It
in
is
that conference.
two good teams in the non-power 5s. Good would be exciting to watch.
And I'm on the side. I like James Madison.
You like
you said
Madison?
you have.
I don't have anything on that game.
Yeah.
I actually think Chris's 4.5 is about right. But the fact that game has been steamed like it has the 6, I'm staying away.
Yeah.
Staying away completely. One I do have a bet on, though. Ohio State at Purdue. The last time Ohio State played in West Lafayette, it was a Saturday night in 2018. And Purdue beat them by 29 points.
Oh, yeah, I remember
No
that.
one,
Oh,
of course, no one in that game is still there.
Yeah.
Neither the coach, not even
Only the memory.
Not even the head coach for Purdue is obviously there. But, Ohio State, Chris, I know a few weeks ago you had Ohio State number 1 in your power ratings. Something just seems off with them. And it's strange to say with a team that's undefeated, with arguably the best win in all of college football this year at Notre Dame, the way it happened. They were open 20. The bettors have taken Purdue down to 18.5 on this one. I got 19.5 early in the week. I didn't get to 20.
Yeah.
But it's potential sleepy spot here for Ohio State with Penn State looming.
Yeah, another one of those 9 a.m. games. That in that early window, it's going to be an exciting start to the day tomorrow. Jeff, I don't know what to tell you. I made the number 19. It's like right there.
It's right on it.
But I kind of agree with what you say. And when I said I had them top rated, I had so many teams like within
so close.
this much. And whenever I said, I think Ohio State had just come off that Notre Dame win. They did have a big win. But I'm kind of with you. I understand where you're coming from, that they have not looked great, And, again, when we were looking at our numbers early in the year, Vinny and I both said they're going to be really good. But they're not as good as they've been the last couple of years.
They're not as good as Michigan also, which I think is one thing
It's the
not
quarterback.
acceptable.
The difference is the quarterback position.
100%.
Right. So, especially when you're comparing them to Michigan, and you mentioned the game, right? Is it a look ahead spot? And again, remember, I always say that college teams tend to look ahead. There are more look ahead spots for college teams psychologically than pro teams. Although pro teams do let down. Case in point, Cowboys a couple of weeks back in Phoenix. But in this game here, I think the adjustments that I've made for Ohio State, there's been some consistency. Their defense has really won some games for them. They've got enough offense. The quarterback is getting more experience, and here we are halfway through the season. So we said, when are we going to see the Michigan we expected? We saw it a couple of weeks ago. When are we going to see the Georgia we expected? And we saw it last week. I don't know if this is a game where Ohio State breaks out or anything, but certainly here it'd be difficult to lay almost 3 touchdowns. Given the spot for sure.
By the way, I looked at my ratings. I have Michigan 1 point better than Ohio State.
Georgia back at the number 1 spot after last week.
Yeah, let me double check. I
personally have
did.
Michigan.
Michigan ahead of Georgia.
I got Michigan.
I got Georgia 1 point better than Michigan.
So
tight. It's all right there. It's all right.
There are a lot of teams that are right in that mix.
Yeah, if and when we get to the playoffs with those teams involved, we're going to have to look a lot at injuries and some things like that to see where it stands. But it's going to be all very tight.
I love Chris's point, because if the playoffs were now, remember in recent years we've had some pretty big numbers on the Final Four, right? Right now when you look at
2-3 at most
Michigan,
in a lot of these games.
Ohio State, we're talking about. Look at Alabama has played themselves right back into the mix. Oklahoma,
don't overlook Oregon,
Georgia,
and
Penn State,
either.
and by the way, this game we're going to talk about in
about 30 seconds,
Lake Washington,
is
going to have something to say about it.
Absolutely,
sure.
I think those two teams are as good as anybody. I really do.
Yeah.
I will, before we get to that Washington Oregon game, real quick. The Mountain West collection. There, Chris, the Mountain West collection this week includes San Jose State, New Mexico, Wyoming, and Air Force, which is an important game.
That's a good game
in that conference. Colorado State hosting Boise, and then the battle for the Fremont Cannon,
the big one
in Reno. Nevada hosting UNLV. Barry Odom has done one of the better coaching jobs in America so far this year with that Rebel team on the cusp of a bowl game.
Absolutely, absolutely. He's done a great job.
No,
I love it.
anything of note on any of those? Really?
Yeah, I have really good two-way action on the Nevada game. The Air Force game, I'm running a little high. I opened it high. I like Air Force in the game. It's kind of come up to my number. Air Force, I got to say this. I'm going back 30 years, maybe even more. When you watch Air Force play football, my first thought is, man, I'm glad these are the guys defending the country. They play hard.
Mm-hmm.
They've been outclassed, physically in a lot of ways, but they are that for 30, 40 years, that's always the guttiest team out there. And like I said, I'm glad they're the ones flying those planes and defending the country.
Air Force with a legitimate shot at 13-0 here this year. Legitimate shot.
Yeah.
They'll have to go to the blue turf the final week of the regular season.
I think I lowered them to win the national championship. Not that they're going to get
They're
an
not going to get in the
invitation,
playoff.
but I mean, they're going to be. Yeah, I think they got a shot. I mean, they can run the football.
Yeah.
Period. They
Now,
can
look,
do that.
That would have been a year for a 12-teamer. They would be in.
Yeah.
They would be in at the 12-team
They would be.
playoff.
Right?
Possession game. I mean,
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier about the Bears watching long term. I mean, again, not just this year, but into next year and next couple of years with the Big 12. Let's watch this Mountain West, how it's going to play out.
Yeah.
Who's going to get added and
With Oregon State and Wazoo probably coming in.
and
Probably. Yeah.
and you mentioned Odom. Look, now UNLV is this is a better place to get recruited to now. You remember, Chrissy, for years, right? The recruits would come in. Of course, the plane was deliberately flown over the strip at night and look at that. Oh, by the way, where's the here's the campus right off the strip. Hey, where's the field? We're gonna go.
40 miles,
25
way
miles
out yonder.
out to Sam Boyd Stadium. Ooh, wait a minute. Now you're playing
Now you're
where
playing
the
in
Raiders play
Allegiant.
on
It's gotta
off of
help.
Las Vegas Boulevard.
Gotta help.
And look, I was around Barry Odom in his tenure at Missouri. That was my beat. I was a radio guy in Columbia, Missouri while Barry was there. He can coach. It's just that he wasn't ready for that Missouri job at that point in his career. And now with more experience under his belt and, quite frankly, in a conference that's a lot weaker than the SEC, as we know,
Sure.
it's a great spot for Barry. And be interesting to see if he sticks around at UNLV or if he jettisons off to a Power 5 job.
I think we got it in for tickets.
He'll recognize my voice. I don't know if he'll be happy with
Can you
me.
help us
then
out
he
with
sees
tickets?
me,
We
but-
have to be honest. Yeah,
Yeah.
they have to do that. But we made the number I think in the games of the year. I think we made UNLV a 2-point favorite.
Yeah, we did.
And it's way out. It's 8.5, even though it's come down this week.
Yeah, and I think my number was 11. So
I think your number's more close to right.
Yeah.
Personally.
Oh, you're saying you like my number better. You're one of those. Okay.
Yes,
Real
bingo
short
card.
set.
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right, game of the week in college football in Seattle, Washington, Oregon. The folks have come in and bet Washington over the last few hours here, Chris. Back to 3.5 where you opened here.
This is a toggler.
Yeah.
3.5, 3.5, 3.5. And, this is one of those games, we have the ties win parlay card. And, I don't shy away from the threes. If I think the 3 is the right number, and we'll get to the pros a little later too. I got a couple of 3s on there. And I know some guys, we were one of the few people that put out the ties win card. And I remember there was some guy, I mentioned this off the air, Vinny, some other guy that you and I both know. Put out a ties win card. Every number was 2, 5, 8. Like okay, so there's not going to be any ties. Is what you're
Looking for a preponderance of 2-point conversions.
Yeah, right. And this was 20, 30 years ago. But if 3's the right number, that's what we put it on. 3. I got a 3 on this game. So ties win card. You lay 2.5, take 3.5. But this is a great betting game, Jeff. And when they kick off. I kind of like both schools. I've been to both I wear the shirts. I got a Washington shirt. I got an Oregon shirt. I love both campuses. I think they're great. I love both programs. I think either one of these teams that wins, I hope goes on to win
Pac-12.
the Pac-12 with an undefeated record. I'm not sure they can because there's a lot of tough games down the road. Oregon's going to play Oregon State. That's always a tough game.
Civil War, yeah.
Washington playing Washington State. And that's not to mention USC and UCLA and Utah's and all those other teams that are out there. But I hope they go undefeated, and I hope they get into the playoffs.
For the purposes of a playoff team, the Pac-12 would probably benefit from Oregon springing the upset here because the schedule for Oregon, difficult, but more manageable than what Washington. Oregon hosts Wazoo on the road at Utah. Utah's no quarterback unless if Rising comes back.
Well, he might be back by then.
Yeah. Cal, they'll beat Cal. They get USC at Autzen. That's a game that Oregon will be favored in and should win.
Yeah.
At the Sun Devils, they'll win that game. And then they get the Civil War at home.
At home, yeah.
So,
Oregon State's a good team.
They are really
That's good.
Washington has a trip to the Coliseum and a trip to Corvallis left, along with the Apple Cup and Utah. They're both difficult schedules, Chris.
That's wow. Give me that one again. That is.
So after this week, they get Arizona State and Stanford. They'll win those two. At their last four, at USC, Utah, at Oregon State, Wazoo. Brutal.
That's a tough 4 game run.
Good games.
That's a tough run. Boy, I'll tell you what.
They will be favored in 3 or 4 of them.
I'll tell you what, though. If they win if they beat Oregon and finish undefeated,
they're in a number 1 seed potential.
I was going to say, they have a legitimate argument to say we are the best team in the country going into the playoffs, which again will determine.
Yeah. You know, for a long time, we talk about the SEC and the Big Ten, and these when we're looking at these games here in the Pac-12, they're fun games to watch. They're fun games to bet for folks, but they're fun games to book.
Yeah,
I mean, it really this game here again positioned nicely right in the middle of the day. Going to be one of the higher handle games. Everybody's going to get involved one way or the other, and particularly not just on straight bets, but in multi-leg action. Chris mentioned the parlay cards, especially when you got several varieties of parlay cards, including the ties win here at South Point. So, look again, 3.5. It's they're laying a 3 with the Huskies and taking 3.5 with the Ducks. It's a great game for everybody, both sides of the counter.
It's the game I've been looking forward to for a few weeks now with Oregon and Washington, and we should have a great one. Is Jimmy going to join us, or did he just?
Where are you going,
John?
Where are you going?
Come on.
We have your microphone set
Yeah,
up.
we got everything set up
right here.
Come on, and you're the only one that doesn't have to
Take
wait
the
for a
ticket.
break.
Go.
Take
the
ahead.
ticket.
There you go.
There we go,
Look at
Jimmy.
him go.
Oh, look at that!
Oh, 78. He can still move.
Wow.
He can still
Look
move.
at this.
Oh my
Let's
God!
go, let's go. What are you going to do?
He ran
Chris told me earlier he had a lot of. What's he have?
Yeah, slide over.
Hold on.
Slide over. Right close.
We're doing
I can
this
tell
in
you
the
this.
pitch.
He ran a 4.44.
There we go. I'm going to move you over a little bit here, Jimmy. There we go.
Wow, that was Bob Hayes. I was Bob Hayes on that.
You bullet Vaccaro.
Jeff's never heard of Bob Hayes.
Jimmy,
Velocity Vaccaro. There you go. Go ahead.
what do you have there?
I have a nice ticket. It says Memphis +5 for $21,000. But the thing I wanted to say, I was talking to Chris earlier. It was all the other side money for like the last day and a half, and all of a sudden we took the big play on this. I think we opened the other side 3, and then the guy took 5. So he didn't take a bad number, that's for sure.
Good number.
There you go. Very
Where
good,
that
Jeff.
guy I mentioned last week came in. I think he bet us 120,000. I think he only bet us 108,000 this week.
What happened? Where did the other money go?
I don't know.
I saw him
Maybe we beat him out of 12. I don't know.
I saw him last night, and it was on the 21 tape.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Before
Was he really? God bless.
Before we forget, I got to say this because it was our humble beginnings here. We had Michael Gaughan, who was sitting in the sports book, obviously, and the owner of the casino. And I remember when me and Chris, then Vincenz jumped on board also. It was like ended up working with the crew. But a long time ago, it was me and Chris, all parlay card money. Like I stood there for about 20 minutes, and there was about 5 windows open, about 10 people in each line, and they were all betting on the parlay cards. This is what started when me and Chris were running for Michael in the way back in the early 70s. We waited for all day for like the parlay card money, and here it is, my friend, almost 50 years later. And tell them how strong the parlay cards are.
I don't want to tell everybody how strong they are. I want to bet the cards. You know.
No. It's a fair number.
Yeah, they're very popular. They're very, but I did say, and including the Oregon game, ties win. It's a 3.
Mm-hmm.
We don't shy away from that. In the NFL, 1, 2, 3. I got 3s and 7s on 5 games. We don't shy away from that. Ties win. Come on in and play. If the number lands, the number lands. What can I tell you? And
the other part of the parlay cards, as I remember vividly in my youth, if you go and look in the sports book at the Royal Inn, where we all started some close to 50 years ago, you saw 10 people in line. You saw 7 women in line because they were sent by their husband, boyfriend, or the people they work for to run in at lunchtime and bet the parlay cards. So I remember we used to sit there and say, wow, what's going on? What's going on? It's like it's a new era. It's a new way of doing business. It's a new thing that people are enjoying, and that was parlay cards. Now, obviously, it's incorporated with everything else that you do, Chris.
Well, everything, too. You could just see, we were missing, half the population as far as, potential customers. That has changed dramatically since you and I started all those years ago. Mm-hmm. Now, just look around. I mean, we have a lot of women coming in here and bet, and not that they do love football, no doubt. But we haven't bet in hockey and basketball and baseball. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of female customers.
My God, our wives are in action.
Yeah, and we got a lot of female ticket writers. Chunks, when we first started, a female ticket writer, that was like unheard of. That was crazy. There were female dealers. That just didn't exist. But now this is how the business has changed. The world has changed.
And we're in what I would consider a bigger change in the next 5 years. I mean, things are obviously percolating to some degree. Obviously, all over the country, you can bet on sports. And way back when, it was like, well, sports won't make it because, first of all, there's not enough people who are involved in it. Now, everybody's involved in it. And when we get some more states involved in it, you'll see just another boom. And get ready, guys.
Okay, I'm going to tell you, I was listening to something yesterday. I can't remember what I was listening to. It might have been Frank. Might have been Frank's show. Like the least valuable of all the major franchises is the Arizona Coyotes, and that's worth almost $1 billion. Mm-hmm. That's the least.
They don't even have an arena in their own.
They don't even have an arena.
Yeah.
That's the least valuable. Yeah. So this is, look at Daniel Snyder, who I hated that guy, but look, he ruined one of the great franchises in the history of the NFL. And what was his punishment? Oh, we got $6 billion. $6 billion. That's all. And so, but this is where sports is going. And it's gone. But we were talking about women being more involved. I'll tell you who I want to reach out to, seriously, and I hope you guys all know, Amy Trask, who was the president, CEO of the Raiders for a long time, especially now that we find out Mark Davis, his favorite casino is the South Point. He eats dinner here 2, 3, 4 times a week. And I'm going to reach out to Amy. I'd love to have her on this show.
Get her on.
She has her own podcast now. She's on CBS as well. But I'm going to say, Amy, you're she worked for Al. She didn't work for Mark. But I'm going to say, Mark's here. We'd love to have you on the show one time. And if you're ever in town, stop by and say hello.
Absolutely.
And remember one more thing. The Castaways, the Royal Inn, the Union Plaza, and the Stardust. We were part of the first casinos to get involved with sports books in their casinos. Way back when you had hair and mine was black.
I already got a hair joke earlier from Parles here. I got to hear it from you now, too.
I won't say anything.
Yeah, don't.
Oh, man.
How you been, kid?
I'm good.
How was your weekend?
I had a good weekend last weekend.
Okay.
Yesterday was not as fun because I lost on the Hail Mary in the college game.
Oh, that's too bad.
So can you tell how broken up Jimmy is about that?
Wow, I mean, he lost on the Hail Mary.
That's the first thing Jimmy said this morning. I can't believe that happened to Jeff West.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Here's a good one.
Oh, he called me last night to say, I can't believe Jeff was on the wrong side of that Hail Mary.
Hopefully I can be here today.
Let me throw this around. Who invented the Hail Mary pass? Who called it?
I'll tell you, it was Roger Staubach to Drew Pearson.
And it
against
was a
the
bad
Minnesota
pass,
Vikings.
Right?
In Metropolitan Stadium.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Way back when.
Who was the broadcaster that coined it? Or was it in the post-game press conference?
That I can't answer, but I do remember the pass. It was Staubach to Pearson.
The best announcer ever was Ray Scott.
Oh, Ray. It might have been Ray Scott.
So actually, here you go.
He was the NFC.
So I got it right here. It was exactly what you said. that Viking Cowboy playoff game at the old Met in Minneapolis.
What year?
75.
Okay.
Wow.
Roger Staubach to Drew Pearson. And Staubach, after the game, said, I closed my eyes and said a Hail Mary.
Is that right?
Wow.
And that's
No
how it's
kidding.
born.
There you go.
Wow.
Get that info anywhere else.
That's great. Yeah, that's
You
great.
can't.
That's amazing.
That's fantastic.
Wow. You probably had the loser.
What, me? Me? I was.
No,
I,
go ahead.
I
Go
was.
ahead. Say it.
I can tell you for sure. I was definitely not alive for that one.
Well, I can tell you, I was with my Uncle Jack.
Okay.
We had the winner.
You had the winner.
We had the winner.
Yeah.
You
I
didn't
was,
feel bad, did you?
Yo,
Was
my
some of your
heart was
friends at the
broken.
other side?
Yeah.
my freshman year of college. Yeah.
Wow.
It didn't help.
It
It didn't help my
75?
tuition.
That was your freshman year? I thought that would be my freshman. No,
That's-
my freshman year was
That's when I
75.
landed, 1975,
Yeah.
when I came here.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a. Yeah. Didn't help my tuition.
I would have been a sophomore. Yeah, we had the
That
right
count.
side. Remember being with my Uncle Jack.
All right. Memphis.
Memphis +5, big
Well
ticket,
done, Jimmy.
Yeah, 20 dimes.
20
Yeah.
dimes.
You sure you're okay?
Oh, I'm good.
All right.
Look, it will not be. It was not the first time you have I have a bad beat like that, and it definitely will not be the last time.
Well, all you people out there watching and listening, there's the one that's doing all the work. She's
Yes,
sitting
that's
right
true.
there.
Back
These
there
two.
for sure,
Okay.
across the way.
Get a
Wow.
shot. in there.
Sean, Ryan, Jerry, and of course, we're not on the air without the four of them.
Oh,
right.
you kidding? We wouldn't
Wait,
exist.
wait, we're on the air?
Yeah. Oh man. We're gonna get a shot of them in a second. Hey, there it is. Wave, guys, wave. There it is. There we go.
Yeah,
There we go.
absolutely. Yeah.
The real show.
The real
Real town.
person in charge here. Jimmy, pleasure as always.
See you later.
All right, Chance.
All right, Jimmy Vaccaro, everybody. We're gonna keep it right here. This is Sports by the Book.
Okay.
Who needs breaks? Who needs
Nobody.
breaks? Jimmy, you can.
We
do
got a lot
your
to talk
usual
about
work.
still. Yeah.
Yeah, the front of the desk is open for you if you want.
No.
So one more college game I want to hit here, Chris.
Shoot.
Southern Cal at Notre Dame.
Oh, was it?
That's a pretty big one, right?
It's not as big as the James Madison game,
No,
but
not-
okay,
not-
we can
not at
talk
all.
about it.
The Trojans, 3-point underdogs. First down, yes. 3-point underdogs on the road at South Bend, and this is another one of those good old togglers here, Vinny.
Yep. Another 3.5. Notre Dame at home. Take a look at the weather tomorrow. I think isn't it? I think it's raining there today. I think there's rain forecast
South
in the morning.
Bend
It's been
weather.
pretty soggy and cool back there. Total came down from the 62.5 to about 59.5, but now starting to go up. Look, I have to tell you, SC's in high scoring games because their defense has been the case. Chris and I have talked about SC's porous defense for the last couple of seasons. I think it's going to be a great wagering game, 4:30. So it's going to have everything rolling to it from the day, including last night, even right. I mean, last night always gets things rolling.
Yeah.
And this one here, Chrissy, again, as long as Notre Dame doesn't win the game by exactly 3, it's going to be a great betting game.
Yeah, should be terrific betting. And by the way, I mentioned using the 3s on the parlay card. We used 3 ties win. 3 on the Oregon Washington game. We used a 3 on this one too.
There you go.
So I mean, if you want to lay 2.5, if you want to take 3.5, that's how it works with a ties win card. So there's a lot of them out there. And listen, they fall. What can I tell you? But when they fall, fortunately, I have guys that I answer to that understand. They want to do it like that, and they know it's going to bring in a lot of people. And we'll win our share. We're going to lose our share too.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the way it happens. But so we're going to do a lot of parlay card business with those 2 games on the ties win 3. And Vinny is right. We ain't rooting for a 3 in either one of those 2 games.
I have, for Notre Dame, playoff chances are done. You have
With
2
2
losses,
yeah.
you're done. It doesn't matter that it came to Louisville, who may very well make the ACC title game when it's all said and
Yep.
done, and Ohio State, who
With 10 men on the field.
with 10 men on the field. But
Yeah.
you're not making the playoff this year
No.
with 2 losses. It's just not happening. I'm just curious, and again, I got burned on this at the end of the Duke game with that one as well. How does Notre Dame respond to being, again, I don't want to say the season's over because they play an amazing schedule and a lot of great teams, and there's a big-time rivalry. How do they respond to that second loss with USC, who has everything still to play for right now.
I will say this. I happened to be at USC yesterday.
Mhm.
I happened to be right there. And I was talking to some people. This is a huge game for USC and conversely for Notre Dame. I mean, this is one of the big rivalries that's been going on since the Newt Rockne days.
It's a long time.
That's even before us, just so I just want to clarify.
This is I don't see them letting down at all for this game. I think that this is tremendously important. Both teams have this circled on their calendar every single year, and I don't see any sort of letdown at all from Notre Dame. I kind of like Notre Dame in this game because I just think USC's defense is so bad. If they get to the lead, which they might, I don't see how they could protect it. And I think really Notre Dame is just the better team and playing at home. I don't see them letting them down. I kind of like Notre Dame in this one.
Jeff, it's a good question. I think, and Chrissy brought up a good point. Notre Dame doesn't let that. They look at their schedule. I mean, maybe
you can't let down.
Maybe the strength of schedule, maybe the best in the country. I mean, so when they've got to go through the same thing every week, emotionally as well. They've got the physical preparation, but when you look at their schedule, they've got to go through that mental aspect of it too, the psychological aspect, and they do, and they come out. They're in every game. It's not like they're getting blown out. They're not blowing people away typically. But I think again, this is another example of that. I give them the edge. They're the favorite, and deservedly so, particularly playing this game in South Bend.
You ready to go over to the NFL, guys?
Yeah,
You ready for that?
We got a lot of stuff, but listen. We went a little long, but it's a great college schedule. What can I tell you?
It seems like every week these schedules continue to produce.
Yeah, we're getting down there. I mean, rivalries are coming up too. Jeff.
Oh yeah,
we could spend an hour talking about Washington the rest of the year.
We could absolutely. That schedule I brought up, brutal for the Huskies, but I do like them tomorrow. All right, let's go to the NFL. Hey, you guys are up for another 6:30 a.m. kick out here in the West Coast.
Why not?
Why not? London
We
yet
never
again.
close.
We get London one more time before the scene shifts to Frankfurt, Germany in a few weeks. Tennessee, the home team, taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Chris, you guys have the market low right now, actually, on Baltimore with the 4 and a 42 on this one. Ravens, I don't know how the Ravens lost that game to your Steelers last week. I still don't know, even after watching it back earlier this week. I can't figure out how they managed to blow that game.
They dropped passes. I mean, and that was a team. I think somebody identified them the day before as, their receivers have the best hands in the league. They don't drop passes. They dropped 7 or 8, something like that.
A lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was 7 or 8, right in their hands. And that's how they lost the game. No strong opinion on this game. I'm surprised I'm at the market low, but I did get bet pretty heavy on the Titans in this one. But I kind of like the Ravens a little bit. I think they bounced back from, just a terrible, terrible loss last week. I do think they come back. And, probably when I get back to the office, I might take a look and go to 4.5. Maybe. We'll see. But I know I have some big play on the Titans from earlier in the week.
I think the Ravens went earlier this week too, right? They learned.
They went on Monday.
From what the Bills didn't do, right? The Bills went 48 hours ahead of time.
Who thought that was a good idea?
I don't know. But and obviously the Bills doing that against the Jags, who were there for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
First time ever that a team played back-to-back games in London. So Tennessee, you just they battle, but they're finding ways at the end of games. In that fourth quarter, they're getting beat. And who's healthier here? Ravens probably, yeah. Do they rebound off of what? Let's got to credit the Steeler defense last week as well. So, I could see this one going higher. I know we were as low as 3.5. I think there'll be a majority of Ravens money here in this one. To Chris's point.
Well, I'm a little surprised his total's been bet up too. Which is, I know Tennessee's defense hasn't. By the analytic numbers, has not played well this year. But Baltimore's defense, I know they gave up the touchdown drive at the end of the game last week. Baltimore's defense has been really good this year when they've been healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they bet me over 41.5 here. I want to say something about these European games.
Yeah.
if we ever get to the day when we do have a team in Europe, and I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime. I think you might see it in yours.
Coin flip, I would say.
They have to do it the way the National League expanded in 1958, when the Dodgers and Giants both moved to the West Coast.
So you're saying 2 teams?
It has to be 2 teams.
Okay.
It can't be 1. I think that would not work. But I think when a team goes to Europe, they play London and Manchester, or London, and
Well, I play London and Munich.
Munich. Whatever. I think it has to be 2, because that's the way you go back and look at the history of the way the National League. Brooklyn couldn't have moved to L.A. unless New York was moving to San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wouldn't have worked. And I think the same way it's going to, if they do go to Europe, I think that's the way they're going to have to do it. I think.
It's interesting. I haven't heard anyone make that point, but it would make
either. But
it would make a whole lot of sense if they did that.
This is me talking. This is me talking.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you after hearing it for the first time.
I think that's the only way it would work.
And it would be expansion, right, Chris?
Well,
I don't think any. Well, we just mentioned how all these teams are worth billions. I don't think anybody wants to move to Europe when you're already sitting on $4 or $5 billion.
The only one that would be willing to move would be Jacksonville. I think Shad Khan would strongly think about it if he doesn't get that money from Jacksonville to redo the stadium. But again, that wouldn't shock me.
Then again, you want even amount of teams, right? You don't want to get into an odd situation.
We had 31 for a long while.
More likelihood of baseball, basketball, and hockey teams relocating than NFL teams, to Chris's point.
Oh. We saw three relocations in a very quick period of time, with the Rams, the Chargers, and the Raiders all relocating within 3 years of each other. Very rare, obviously, in the years before that, because it was the Rams who went from LA to St.
I've thought about this, I have given it some thought, and I think the only way to do it is you have to have 2 teams.
I wouldn't have a problem with that. Wouldn't have a problem with that at all. All right, let's go to later on Sunday. The 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific windows. Atlanta, boy, Falcons found a way last week in a game that managed to land 2, of course.
Not the first time they've done that.
They already did that once against Green Bay. They get the Commanders. Boy, what a disaster for Washington last week on the Thursday night. Just destroyed at home by Chicago. Chris, 42.5 on the total for this one. Atlanta, who is 3-0 at home, has been a 2.5-point favorite the whole week. Has not moved.
Jeff, I don't know if anybody knows they're playing. I do have a bet over 42. That's the only bet I got, Jeff. I got nothing. I don't know if anybody cares or nobody knows or whatever. You're looking at, usually you get something off the 2.5. Like if the wise guy's like the favorite, it's going to go to 3. If they like the dog, you'll see a little bit. I got no dog money. I got no money line money. I got no nothing money, Jeff.
Wow.
You can cancel this game and I'll be just fine.
It doesn't happen a lot that a college game will outright an NFL game. But we talked about a couple of college games that have right now done superior handle.
Oh yeah.
The Washington compared to this game, the Oregon Washington game and the USC Notre Dame games.
And don't forget James Madison.
And James Madison.
Yeah.
I didn't want to make the Commanders and the Falcons feel that bad. But so now will there be action? Will this game be tied in in the morning? Yeah. But as of now, right, Chris?
Like I said, nobody knows they're playing. I'm blaming you, Jeff. You have to get that out. You have to get the word out. These two teams are playing.
Funny? You know what's funny with that? Atlanta's one of my stronger plays this week.
You like them, do you?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
All right, buddy.
Good. Everybody, you listening?
Yeah,
Jeff loves it. I mean, just come in and bet. I hope you'll win. I
hope I win.
I hope you win. Honestly.
But it's one of those where we talked about this last week. And again, Atlanta ended up pushing a whole bunch of numbers. It really depended on when you got it last week. If you got it right, you won with Atlanta. If you got it wrong, you lost with Atlanta. Well, and you pushed.
We got it wrong, I can tell you.
Yeah, no, I know. If you got the right numbers, you won last week.
Yeah, you sure did.
But
I had a 2 on the ties win card too. By the way,
so but there's something to this home. Like Desmond Ritter's been disastrous away from home.
Right. I know. Yeah,
he hasn't been good, but he's at least played at it. All right, you could see this guy as could be an NFL starter at home. Now, it's not a very ringing endorsement by any stretch of the imagination, but this Atlanta team has a lot of talent on offense.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And
I think they do.
We just haven't seen it because of the quarterback. And this is the right defense. If you're going to get right, Washington's defense has been bad this year.
Mm-hmm.
They were bad against the Bears. They were bad against Philadelphia. They were bad for a half against Denver, and then Sean Payton did his thing. The only half they played reasonably well in was the second half against Arizona, and the Cardinals' offense just isn't any good.
You know, I'm looking at my notes. I made this game 4.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so 2.5 to 4 isn't a big deal in college. It's a huge deal
Big
in
one
the
in the
NFL.
NFL, 100%.
Atlanta will get after Howell in this game.
I agree with you on that. Taking a lot of sacks so far this year. If it wasn't for Daniel Jones, he'd be leading the league in sacks taken.
Is that right?
But because of whatever the Giants offensive, we'll get to them later. What a disgrace that has been so far in East Rutherford. All right, to Chicago next. Hey, the Bears are no longer winless. They're on the board with their win last Thursday against Washington. They take on Minnesota, who is just decimated with injuries.
Right.
Justin Jefferson's on IR. We won't see him for at least a month, maybe longer. The rumblings of will this be the end of Kirk Cousins in Minnesota continues on. Chris, this is 3. Vikings laying it on the road at Soldier Field. This is another one of those togglers.
Well, you know, I got to tell you, my numbers came a lot higher.
Okay.
When I made my numbers last Sunday night, and I could show you my sheet. Came higher, and I have an arrow down. Like, there's no way. I'm like, my numbers came to 5, but I knew all the injuries for Minnesota. I really think this is a great spot for the Bears, and it's one of those. Sometimes, Jeff, I heard this a long time ago. Sometimes the price tells you the winner, and I think the price is kind of telling you the winner here because the if you go strictly by numbers, which is how I do my power ratings, I try to be as objective as possible. But sometimes you just know that's not the right number, you know. And I could again show you my sheet. I think the price is telling you the winner here. I think the Bears are the right side very much in this game.
Okay.
I mean, even with the home field, which is really negligible in the NFL, in most NFL situations, this being one of them. I mean, it's, you know, power rating wise, it pencils out to, you know, probably 5 or even more.
5.
So, but with all the injuries, the Bears coming off a real positive note, their first victory, as you mentioned, Jeff. And I have to tell you, this Cousins thing is probably a distraction, not only to him, but I think to the entire team. So we've talked about it quite a bit. I mean, really, you know, for the last couple of weeks, especially with the Vikings having so much success last year in one-score games, and the exact opposite happened in this year. You got the trade deadline coming up. Is he going to get moved to a contender? And it's not just him. I mean, are they
could do a full
sellers,
fire sale,
right?
Wouldn't
you know,
shock
I mean,
me.
there's going to be teams that are sellers of multiple positions. So this could be one.
Chris, I want to ask you this before we move off of this game, because obviously everyone talked about team regression with Minnesota. It has happened so far.
Sure.
All their games have been 1 score, and they're 1-4.
Sure.
But I would argue that this team is better than the team last year, which is a little bit amazing despite what the records were.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I know we hate these hypothetical questions,
Yeah.
but
No, if you look at the internal metrics,
Yeah.
the internal, not the final scores, the
internal
internal metrics, I think you could very easily make the case.
defense is much better than it was.
Yeah, they had a negative point differential last year
Sure did.
and won 13 games. You know, I mean, that's not going to happen very often. I think this team is a little better, but, you know, the injuries were really the deciding factor for me. And I think the Bears, you know, a lot of times you get a team like that, they win 1, they're going to win 2. You know, and conversely, when you see a team that's on a roll, they lose 1,
They
they lose 2. And I just think it's a really good spot for the Bears. And I checked my parlay card. I used 2 on the ties win because I really do like the Bears in this spot.
Let's go to Cincinnati next. A good game.
Mhm.
Seahawks off the bye, head to Cincinnati. The Bengals, they got right. They got right. They got to win. They covered last week in Arizona. Burrow looked the healthiest he has looked all year long.
He got right, yes.
And, you know, Chris, this is a really intriguing game. You guys have sat at 3 for a good portion of the week here after you opened 2.5 and took the bet up to 3. I think we learn a lot about both of these teams this week. Where is Seattle as good as that 3-1 start that we've seen from them? Or did everyone let Cincinnati hang around here and let themselves get right? Then all of a sudden, we're looking up in 3 weeks and like, whoa, the Bengals got to 6-3. How did that happen?
Well, this is one of those games, a very weak 3.
Yeah.
It's 3 even money, so juice on the dog. The money line is, I think, about $1.50. Let me check real quick. So that shows you it's a weak 3. I'm looking. We are $1.55, but it's mostly 50. There's some 55 too. I mean, you could see a strong 3 team might be up to $1.80 or even $1.85, something like that. So week 3. So I think this is one of those. Jeff, I made the number 2.5, which puts it like right there. I don't have a strong opinion on this game, but I do feel what you said is right. This is going to be a strong indicator, one way or the other, on where these two teams are and where they're going.
I think when you look at the Bengals, right, the difference between the victory last week and the victory against the Rams. I mean, obviously, Rams were at home. But you hit on a key point. Burrow looked better. How did he look better? He was able to throw the ball deeper.
Oh, and his mobility was better, too.
And he was able to move around, looked to be more comfortable, right, and more fluid. He may get Higgins back this week, too, T. Higgins, which is certainly going to help and present some problems for the Seahawks. So, look, I think Pete Carroll's done a terrific coaching job, the last couple of years. You look at last year and look at this year where he's got the team. Sometimes teams have no control over this. Sometimes an early bye works against you. I think if coaches had their choice, they would always want a later bye as the season gets further along and there's probably more injuries. But they'll deal with the hand they were dealt. But this is what I want to see, how the Bengals really, especially, respond to last week's victory compared to the victory against the Rams.
Cincinnati after this. Bye week at San Francisco, Buffalo.
Yeah, monster.
Ooh,
I mean,
brutal. The next
three big games in a row. So we'll find out, Jeff. Yeah.
And we talked about Cincinnati. Their schedule on top of those games gets much more difficult on the back end. But hey, it just kind of feels like one of those where he had a shot to cut the head off, and the rest of the league just didn't do it just yet. You can't let a team with that good of a quarterback hang around. Yeah. You got to when.
Well, I agree with Joe Burrow when they ask him how long is your window going to be open. He says, "Well, as long as I'm here."
100%.
I think that's
100%.
I think that's right. Yeah.
All right. Speaking of quarterback injuries, let's go here. Cleveland
Oof.
Browns hosting the Niners. Deshaun Watson is out, already ruled out for this one with that right shoulder injury that has been sort of a mystery going into this week.
Well,
we now
the doctors said he could play.
Well, we now know it's a rotator. It's deeper into the rotator cuff than we realized.
Okay.
But you are right. Like the reports are that he could play, but the Browns are electing to keep him out again. They had a bye last week, so that's 2 in a row that he is missing, even with the bye mixed in. Chris, it opened 5.5 when it looked like Watson, all right, probably going to play. I can tell you it's not that anymore.
No.
Peaked at 10, now 9.5 on the Niners on the road at Cleveland.
My rule since even when I was at Cal Neva all those years, I never take games off the parlay card unless it's a quarterback. This one I had to take off the parlay card. Now I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to put it back on Sunday morning.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be back on. The number is 6.5 and 7 on the ties win, which is essentially 6.5. I tried to stay ahead of this, and right now, pure action-wise, I'm not in bad shape. But man, there's a lot of numbers that can really hurt me on this one. Yeah. So from 5.5 up to 10, they took the 10. I'm at 9.5. So there's I'm in a very dangerous zone in this area in this game. But I want to say this, and a friend of mine pointed this out. Jim Schwartz has an incredible record defensively against Kyle Shanahan coach teams. And this defense for Cleveland is fantastic, maybe the best in the league. Now, can they hold up against this Niner team when their offense doesn't figure to give them a whole lot of help? I don't know if they can or can't. I think this will be a huge test for them. So right now, I don't really have a strong opinion on this game, but I think this is going to be very, very interesting to see how good this Cleveland defense is against the team, like I said, with the Niners, but with no help from your offense. That's going to be the test.
Number was it was 10, and that's a play on the number, right? I mean, it's an NFL game with a good defense. And again, another key number. We talk about the key numbers in football. I mean, obviously 3 is, we've really talked a lot about the 3, the most key number. But you start, getting around. You look at 4, you look at 7, you look at 10. I mean, that's that was the. By the way, I think Sunday night, Chris, I think the initial play was on Cleveland, right? Didn't they take the 5.5? Or,
I opened it high because I thought money would show, and the first bets were on Cleveland.
Yeah, so but again, that was
we'll see.
We thought that Watson would be back.
Yeah, I thought Watson would be back.
Yeah, I very strange, this whole situation with the shoulder. On the San Francisco front of things, that was spectacular what they did to Dallas on Sunday. Every facet of the game, as well as he can do it. It's amazing how good Brock Purdy has been through the first 5 weeks.
He's in the conversation for the MVP. He might be the favorite right now.
Yeah, Tua, him, and honestly, Christian McCaffrey are your 3.
I think Josh Allen has to be
Josh
in there.
Allen
He's had like
probably
a
is in that
couple
mix,
bad
too.
games, but he's been really good too.
But I'll tell you, the thing that makes Brock Purdy so good is the way he's coached.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
no
when
doubt.
you look at
100%.
when you look at Patrick Mahomes and his talents, you look at Josh Allen. I mean, you don't have Purdy in the same skill set necessarily. However, within the system, so you have to credit the coaching staff to recognize what his strengths are, and then implementing it, and then him following the script. I have to tell you, there's a complete opposite in a lot of other teams.
Yeah,
one of them in MetLife. So
yeah.
I mean,
good Lord,
you take the Jets. I mean, it's a complete opposite.
I'll say
with
two
the
of them in MetLife.
I was thinking more.
Both
the Giants.
I can go either way on
But
that.
I mean, you look at. Listen, this is what we've got. This is the skill set. Let's maximize the skill set, and give an opportunity to succeed. I think this is the greatest example with Purdy here.
I would tell you this. When most of these quarterbacks, even at college, when you play in a major conference, most of them have a good arm. So let's just throw that out. But other than that, what is the skill set of a quarterback that makes them successful in the NFL? They got to be able to process quickly and throw accurately. And Purdy can do that. And I know he doesn't have an arm like Josh Allen. I know that. But he can still make the throws. And if you process and have accuracy, I look at Drew Brees. Drew Brees actually had a pretty good arm. But there's a lot of guys out there. Yeah, but I mean, if you could process and make and throw accurately, you're going to be successful.
Looking at you, Matt Campbell. How did this guy regress every single year he was at Ames?
I don't know.
It's pretty amazing. Looking
I
at
think
that
Matt Campbell's regressed every year at Ames as well.
That is true, my friend. That is definitely true. All right, let's keep it in this 1:00 Eastern window. This is an interesting game. New Orleans at Houston. Saints destroyed New England last week. I think that had more to do with the Patriots than it did with the Saints. Texans dead even with Atlanta most of the way. They lose on a last-second field goal. I would feel pretty good if I were a Houston fan right now with what I've seen through 5 weeks, even under 500.
Nice coaching.
Very happily take the 2 and 3 the way it's gotten to there. Stroud still hasn't thrown a pick through 5 games. Chris, you opened New Orleans 2, got as high as 2.5. You're now sitting at 1.5 on this one.
Good business on this one. A lot of two-way action. I think it's a really interesting game. I think the public's finding the same thing. And I want to say, a friend of mine, a friend of probably all of ours, Wes Reynolds. I remember Wes and we went on Twitter last year. I said it first, and then Wes kind of backed it up and added more to it. That I thought C.J. Stroud was going to be a better quarterback in the NFL than Bryce Young. I know I'm old school in a lot of ways. I like the bigger guys. That's who I like. And it's not like the kid didn't have any talent. He wasn't just a big guy who couldn't play. I mean, a guy could play. And I think right now, C.J. Stroud looks like he's going to be a coming star. This kid is good. And DeMarco Ryans the coach. I didn't know much about him. I didn't know anything. But he's done a really good job.
So far, so good.
So far, so
good with
Yeah.
Ryan.
It's early, but so far, so good.
No, very impressive what we've seen so far out of the Houston staff.
Absolutely.
Again, they look a lot better than I would have expected.
Yeah.
And Stroud has been a lot better than I expected this quickly. Maybe down the road, but this quickly, he's been
I don't
great.
expect any rookies to be great. Really, I don't. But he has been very, very good.
Go ahead, Vinny.
I think that, you hear me talk probably more about coaching than a lot of other, guys probably in our position. But I think you have to take it into consideration with not only when you're making numbers, but when you're booking. And certainly this is another good coaching job here. And by the way, you look at the three rookies. I thought that Richardson probably had the better first month. Jeff, you and I have talked about this a few times. But I think when you compare Stroud, Young, and Richardson, to Chris's point, I think Stroud has done the best job. I mean, Richardson's been hurt. He hasn't been able to finish
Richardson's
a
only
game, and
completed
he's out.
one game he's played in so
Young
far.
is really struggling, I think, to read games. But Stroud has done a terrific job, and this team competes, and they're in most of the games.
Speaking of, go ahead, Chris.
I was saying my beef against Richardson wasn't really a beef. It was just he didn't have the experience. I didn't think we had enough to judge him by.
No.
But I think he looks pretty good. And again, it's going to a lot. And I think he has the right coach, by the way.
I agree.
But I think that's going to be it because how many quarterbacks get ruined in this league? Mac Jones, I'm looking at you. But I mean, a lot of guys get ruined. And if he stays healthy, stays with the right coach, and does the right things, which, again, so far so good. But he hasn't. The health is a different issue. But I think this kid has pretty good potential as well.
Speaking of Indy, they're on the road at Jacksonville this week.
Yeah.
We saw this matchup in week 1. Jacksonville somehow managed to cover that game despite Indy probably being the right side in that one. Gardner Minshew makes his return to Jacksonville here. He'll start.
Minshew magic?
IR for Richardson with the shoulder injury.
Yeah.
We won't see him at least for 4 weeks. And
He got hurt in that game, late in that game, right?
That was the reason I don't think Indy covered because they had the ball at the 2-yard line and then they had to throw twice because they didn't have Richardson in the game. But Chris, doesn't matter for the bettors. From 5-4 on this one here.
I see no difference in the number with Minshew. He's just a nice veteran quarterback, solid backup, really knows the game well. They're not missing anything. Now, a year or two from now, we might see 3, 4, 5 point difference between these two quarterbacks, but not at this point in their careers. But I think Minshew's a solid quarterback. I kind of like Jacksonville a little bit here. Nothing really strong. But I think the number's gotten a little bit cheap. I got a lot of money on the Colts, both on the point spread and particularly on the money line.
I think people are still trying to figure the Jags out too. I think that maybe has something to do with it. Although, I think I could see the public coming in and supporting the Jags here, particularly in probably money line parlays and teasers. You know, but I mean, it's not a game that's drawing. It's ahead of the Commanders and Falcons. But I think it'd be pretty much two-way action on this one. I could see.
Let's go to South. Let's keep it in Florida. Go to South Florida for this one. Miami's a giant favorite yet again. Covered last week against Big Blue. Now they get Carolina. Panthers 14-point dogs. Total's 47.5 here, Chris. Again, Carolina the only winless left. Miami, there are some injuries on the Miami side. Achane is going to miss this game with the knee injury. He was also put on IR, but that doesn't seem to be slowing down the Miami vaunted offense at this point.
If you're playing bingo here, let me give you another one, diminishing returns. Because I think, again, if you just strictly pencil out this number, Miami should probably be a little bit higher than this. I think Carolina's just terrible right now in so many ways. But I also think, in the NFL, coaches tend to take their foot off the pedal late in the game, and it's just so hard to lay 14 in an NFL game. But I think, like I said, number wise, probably would go for Miami, but I think psychologically, 14 is just too tough to overcome. And a gun to my head, I'd probably take the dog, but you better put a loaded gun to my head because I don't think I really would want to play this dog at all.
Back door.
Yeah, that's the hope here.
Yeah.
I mean. Look, Carolina got demolished last week by Detroit. That game was really, other than for maybe about a few minutes in the beginning of the game, that game was never competitive. The Lions, and good on Detroit here, we'll get to them in a second.
Turnovers.
The Lions inflicted their will on that game, turned them over a few times. I'm just curious for Miami now where you're getting to the point, and we'll get to the Eagles in a little bit. If there's ever a look-ahead spot in the NFL, it's for Miami here this week. You're playing the worst team in the league record-wise, arguably the worst team in the league power rating-wise.
Yes.
And you have Philadelphia on deck. A Sunday night game in Philly next week. It is, again, it's a lot harder to get the college kids up every single week.
Yeah.
But if there is ever a look-ahead spot in the National Football League, it is this week with the Miami Dolphins.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, you just go strictly numbers. You couldn't play Carolina.
Right.
But that's not the way the NFL works. By the way, a good friend of ours is watching. Chris Felica.
The Bear.
The Bear.
Nice.
The Bear. And the Bear, maybe it's because I'm wearing this shirt. He wants to take a big number on. He wants to get 13 on Stanford tonight.
You're gonna get there for him?
I told him. I texted him. Stick around.
Don't go far. Don't go far, Bear.
Absolutely. Let's go to the first game that was flexed out of its original window this year, and that was, as we all expected, the Detroit Lions at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, from a 1:00 Eastern to a 4:25 Eastern game. This is, Chris, Tampa's off the bye. They're 3-1.
Also, the 2 first-place teams.
The vibes are good. 2 first-place teams. This is another toggler, 3.5 to 3. This is a really interesting spot for the Detroit Lions here, where, all right, they already passed the road favorite deal with Green Bay 2 weeks ago. They've, since that loss to Seattle, have really, really looked great the last 3 weeks. 3 double-digit wins, none of them overly competitive. This is a different animal here for Detroit now. On the road against a team that, yes, I didn't think was going to be any good going into the year, but has looked good through 4 weeks. Different task here for the Lions as 3-point favorites in Tampa here.
This looks like a solid 3. It's hard to make any other number. I used 3 on the Ties win card, too. I'm really interested in seeing this game. I don't know why. I've always kind of liked Baker Mayfield, maybe because so many people didn't like him. But he took over an 0-16 team, and in a couple of years had them in the playoffs in Cleveland. Boy, they got rid of him pretty quick and wound up signing Deshaun Watson for $250 million guaranteed. Sometimes, listen, I know I'm a Steeler fan, and but we always wanted Cleveland to be good. We want to beat them. We wanted to beat a good team, But I don't know. I think they treated this kid poorly, and I've just rooted for him since then. And he's really playing well for Tampa. So I don't know. Again, no opinion. I think 3 was just a very solid number here.
A resilient warrior. That's
there you go.
When you look at Mayfield, listen, this is still a veteran team too, right? Offensively,
Mike Evans will play also.
Mike Evans is going to be good. That's an important point, Jeff, and a veteran defensive unit as well. So, and you know what? I know that coaching wise, you get both, right? You get more probably negatives, about the coaching staff in Tampa, but I got to tell you, it's hard to argue with, the way they compete, the way they battle. They played Philly. Philly's just better. All right, when that loss, but they bounced back and they did it. I mean, this is going to be a good game and a game that bears watching. And let's remember this: the Bucs are in first. I don't think we're not surprised that the Lions are in first.
They were the betting favorites going into the year,
but it is a surprise that the Bucs are in first in their division.
It's a huge surprise to me that Tampa's looked as good as they have through the first 4 weeks. They're a bottom 3 power rated team for me going into the year.
Me too.
Yeah,
me too.
And they have a legitimate shot to win that division,
no doubt,
because
it's a weak division.
Even though Atlanta's really talented, they're just not talented at the position that you need to be talented at. And New Orleans, New Orleans' defense is good, but I just don't trust this version of Carr to get it done. And we saw it 2 weeks ago where Tampa went there and handled their business pretty easily. Well, you want to go to this fun one just down the road from us?
Sure.
We have to. Must.
Due north. Raiders off their Monday night win despite the best effort of their head coach, taking on the New England Patriots, who, man, it is flabbergasting to see what has happened in New England. I knew the roster wasn't good, but to watch them get beat, it combined 72-3 the last 2 weeks. Their only win is against the Jets because they own the Jets' soul with Belichick. But this is really embarrassing what has happened in New England. And I know that defense is battered with injuries, but 72-3 in 2 weeks in the NFL, that just doesn't happen.
Being dominated.
Yeah, I made this game a solid 3. It's just hard to do anything but that. But boy, and I'm going to give a shout out to our friend the Bear. He told me that's his game. He likes the Patriots in this game. Man, it's a hard one to play either way.
It's a difficult one.
But again, I'm not the only one saying this. There's a lot of people saying it. The general manager has really hurt the coach in New England. Well, they happen to be the same guy. But I never thought that was a good idea. And then Belichick, of course, 7 Super Bowls later, said, maybe it was a good idea. But now it's kind of come back to haunt him. You always want to have the one guy to say, hey, I would help you out but my boss says I just can't do it. And in New England, you can't do that. But I don't know. I mean, I can see where the Bears coming from. It is 3 with some juice on the dog. So it looks like the wise guys are certainly not playing the Raiders. If they're going to come in on anything right now, it looks like it will be New England.
There are some teams where probably one of, if not the most key relationship when it comes to teams playing is out of sync. That's quarterback and coach. We saw it last night in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Not in sync at all. There's another one here. I think that Jones has got a short leash, and I think he knows it. For the Raiders, they're averaging, 17 points a game. I don't know how you're going to keep winning games unless you've got an 85 Bears defense.
And they don't have that.
They definitely don't have
to win week games at 17, and they don't have it. So, you kind of waiting for Belichick to what's been his strength as a coach, right? Identify what the other team's strength is and take it away. He hasn't been able to do that. I'm sure he's identified it, but he hasn't been able to execute it.
His team, his defense is just so that injury report, I'm not kidding you with this.
No, it's
the New England injury report is 18 people deep right now.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I think it's the biggest injury list, and it's got to be the biggest.
It's the longest one I think I've ever seen in an NFL game, to be honest with you, Vinny.
I don't, but listen, but we've seen the Raiders have been backed every week, and I don't see a change in here given the performance of the Patriots. We're probably gonna need the Patriots in this game.
There are some games that you just say, you know what, I'm gonna watch it, and I'm not gonna have a bet on it.
The win game.
That's what I'm gonna do. I did earlier in the week, kind of talked myself into, hey, maybe the Raiders are good this week, but it's like no.
Mm-hmm.
Still, Josh McDaniels is a favorite in an NFL game, and New England. And Chris, you bring this up all the time. The team is never as good as they were the previous week, and they're never as bad as they were the previous week, unless if it was the Patriots the last 2 weeks.
There are exceptions to the rule. Yeah.
So, really, are we going to have a third straight week where New England looks like the worst team in the NFL?
I remember the one year I was doing another radio show, and the guy loved to say, teams tend to improve off a loss. And it was the one year when Detroit was 0-16. I said, this is like about week 14 or something. So Detroit should be the greatest team of all time.
Right.
What you're telling me. So there are exceptions to rules.
Let's go to L.A. next. Rams and Cardinals. Rams are 7, Chris. Total's 48. This has been bet up 6.5, 6, and then 6.5, now 7 on the Rams and the Cardinals. 48, the total for this one. I like this Ram team. I don't know how good they are. I don't know if they're a team that's going to win 9, 10 games. But they're at least a team where if Matthew Stafford is upright, you kind of know what you're getting out of him every week now. You're going to at least get some consistent offense if the offensive line wants to block, and you're getting a defense that has one player on it.
Well, I have a friend of mine who he likes to ask me who I like. He might be listening right now. I told him I like 3 games this week. I like the Bears.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to tell you the other one because we haven't gotten to it yet. But I like the Rams.
You like the Rams?
I think the Rams are ready to explode. They've come. They're looking like they're this coach. Did we forget how good of a coach McVay is? And they're coming this close, I should say. Did we forget how good of a coach McVay is? And Stafford is still a really good quarterback. boy, I'm terrible with the names. What's the rookie? Puka Nakua. Thank you.
There you go. Look at Ryan.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the staff.
Yeah, that's why they're here. And then, Cooper Kupp now back. I think this Rams team is ready to explode in a really good way. And I think we've seen about the best out of Arizona that we're going to see. They've played well. You can only go to the well so far when you don't have that much talent.
I agree with that last part. I think that's more of why I like the Rams this week also, where it's Arizona's played at their peak for the first 5 weeks.
Yes, they
and
have.
it might have peaked out last week when they took the lead back against Cincinnati, and then Dobbs threw the pick six, and it was lights out from there.
Well,
and also, too, you mentioned it. Cooper Kupp came back last week.
Had a good game.
And until the Eagles just sucked the life out of them in the second half, that was a dead even game.
Well, you talk about peaking. It doesn't help to peak without James Conner either, who's having a
another big injury.
Nice year for probably his second best year since his best year since he got to the Cardinals from the Steelers. He had a terrific year with the Steelers, but you're starting to see the card. Listen, we talk about teams' identities, and I think that the Cardinals they're starting to wear down.
I think this, you're like Chris said, it's the peak of Arizona at this point. They got their win, so they're not going 0-17 like we thought they might. But they just might be competitive enough to lose a whole boatload of football games and not cover a bunch of numbers. That's kind of where we're heading with Arizona now.
There's a word for it. I forget what it is. Remember my old statistics professor, but I can't think of what the word is. But there's like trend lines.
Yes.
When they go and you see it, we see it a lot in horses too.
Is it a curve?
What, the bell curve?
It's not a bell curve, but it's like I can't think of the word. But so when you have a team, like let's say a team, they're up here and they're on the downside, but they're still priced like they're up here. So they're overpriced. They're on the downside, but they're still. And conversely, you have a team on the upswing, and they be heading towards their peak, but they're still priced like they're down here. For the life of me, I can't remember that. I graduated college in '78, Vinny. It's a long time ago.
It's all right. It's all right.
But I think about that often, and I think this is a perfect example of that game because I think the Arizona team has peaked. They're on the downside, but we're still pricing them like as if they were on that peak. And conversely, with the Rams, I think they are heading towards a peak, but we're pricing them as if they're still way below that peak. So that's the way I look at this game. And you could do that in a lot of different situations. But I think this is a really good example of that.
Let's go to the Meadowlands. Jets, Eagles. The Eagles and the Jets. The Jets have never beaten the Philadelphia Eagles in a regular season game, which is
right?
pretty amazing. That double-digit times against each other hasn't mattered. This was a toggler. Opened 6, up to 7, now 6.5. The injury reports that came out about an hour ago for both sides are pretty alarming on both ends. Jalen Carter, Darius Slay, both out for Philadelphia. Arguably their two best defensive players. On the Jets side, DJ Reed did not clear concussion protocol. He's out. Brandon Echols, Justin Hardy, their best special teamers, also out. Sauce Gardner is now questionable with an illness. He did not practice today.
That's a big one, yeah.
And Xavier Gibson is questionable with an injury he suffered yesterday. So there are potentially gigantic injuries on both sides in this game here, Chris.
This is the third game I like.
Yeah.
I like the Jets. Of course, I'd like that a lot more when it was 7.
I'd agree with you.
That's when I gave it to my friend. It was 7. But the money is shown on the dog here, and I think the dog money is going to be right here. We'll probably go into this game needing the Jets, but I can see right now there's a lot of 6s. I still see a 7 out there. I see 6.5. I'm going to try to stay a little bit under the market here. So when I go back to the office, I might go back to 6 here. Let me see what my action looks like. But I like the Jets. We'll look at that total. Total's 41. I believe that's the second lowest total. The only one lower is Cleveland.
Yep, that's correct.
So I think they're telling you right there. Points are going to be at a premium here. I think it's going to be a very close game. I don't know if the Jets can win. I think they can win actually, but I like the Jets getting the points here.
I agree with you on that. On 7, I took 7 earlier in the week.
Did you? Yeah.
I think Gardner's Salah has said that he'll be ready to go. Is he going to be 100%? It's hard to say. I think the key is, again, what's the game plan? If Philly's been, some people seem to think that Philly's done it with mirrors. Credit Philly for what they've done so far, not only winning but in covering as well, right? But can the Jets win this game coming off of the victory against the Broncos? Yes. We're still waiting for Philadelphia, I think, to be the Philadelphia that they were. I'm not sure they're going to be the Philadelphia they were a year ago with both coordinators being gone. I think there's some adjustments.
Correct.
Now you add the injuries to that. That complicates it.
The other
Vinny,
argument,
I think you're 100% right. Losing both coordinators, I think, was very big for this team.
Who are doing very well, in their
Absolutely
in where they're at.
Steichen looks like a really good head coach in Indy. And for Gannon, he inherited the worst team in the NFL, and they don't look like the worst team in the NFL. So that's pretty good on his end. I will say this with Philadelphia. One thing, they're 5-0. They're 4-1 against the number.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of it's a testament to how good of a team they are that we can sit here and I think correctly so say, hey, this team's not as good as they were a year ago. Sure. And here they are 5 weeks into the season.
We're not saying they're bad, but
I think
it's not last year's Eagles,
I think it's just a testament to how good they actually are. It's like, okay, we expect more of them. Wait a second, they're 5-0 and they're 4-1.
They're still the second best team in the NFC, I would say. Most people would say that.
I would argue the second best team in the NFL. Yeah. I think San Francisco is the only team that's clearly better than them.
Okay,
right
that's a good point.
Not a difficult road trip.
Yeah,
either.
No, just up the turnpike there, Vinny. There'll be a lot of Kelly green in that one, probably in the stands. Or what is that, midnight green now, that new green there in Philadelphia?
I don't know. I look at cash green.
Okay, so. Very good. Very good. All right, last one for Sunday. Giants and Bills. Boy, the Giants are an embarrassment right now. They're very lucky to have that win against Arizona, or it'll look even worse right now. Chris, you open 15. You're back to it, even with the news that Daniel Jones is not going to play this week with the neck injury. Andrew Thomas is out again. What is there to say about the Giants at this point? 15. In week 6.
With all the injuries to
Buffalo.
To Buffalo's.
How can you pull the trigger and bet the Giants? I tell you what, if you bet the Giants, this is Sunday night, last game, take your wife out to dinner. Pray that you can come home and see a win. Maybe 21-7. Something like that. And
24-10 gets it done.
Something like that. That's I would be so hard to bet the Giants and sit there and watch this game. I think it would be really difficult.
Go to church twice.
One question on the quarterback real quick.
Yeah.
Because Tyrod Taylor's a respected backup
He's not bad.
quarterback.
Yeah, he's not bad.
I don't think there's any difference, or at least there shouldn't be with
the way Jones is playing.
The way Jones has played. If anything, I would say that the Giants might be power rated better with Tyrod in there.
Well, at least Tyrod's going to have the brains to throw the ball away once in a while. And Jones is a Duke graduate. You think the guy might have common sense and brains can often be two different things. Throw the ball away once in a while. You don't have to take every one of those sacks.
I think if you're gonna, you want to find out about Saquon Barkley. Status, right? Right now he's still questionable, so you want to wait for the actives and inactives. And again, the fact that this is a Sunday night game, everything is going to be going to it. You wonder if it's going to go higher. Now, if Barkley is going to play, then I think we'll see some pros will take the Giants because they'll take 2 touchdowns. It's difficult to bet. One of the worst offensive lines that I can remember. Yeah. There's also a difference too. When Tyrod Taylor, I've learned this from listening to NFL quarterbacks. The big difference coming into a game in relief, as now you're the guy, you're the go-to guy, and being asked an awful lot to go against still one of the better teams. I know they have 2 losses, it's after last week getting beat over in London. I think you'll see a different Bills team here.
From Sam Munson at Pro Football Focus, most offensive line pressures given up a year ago, 212. The Giants are currently on pace for 326.
Oh, my goodness. Are you serious?
Yeah.
I just knocked Daniel Jones, but, in all honesty, and he's a victim of circumstances. Now, he should be able to get rid of the ball a little bit better. But that offensive line has done him no favors
none.
whatsoever.
Again, one of the and they've got injured.
And they have injuries on top of being
and now
bad.
they're figuring to be worse.
Two starters are
Thomas is out. John Michael Schmitz is out as well at the center position. A mess, an unbelievable mess.
Are we going to get the 17 here? Depends on what the action looks like.
I think everything going to
Yeah,
Chris,
yeah,
and if there's no Barkley, absolutely.
I will say this: if it gets to 17, I think you bite the bullet and you take the 17. And if you get blasted, you get blasted.
Well, then do what I said and go to church.
100%.
Go to two masses and then do what Chrissy said and get misses and go to dinner.
100%. All right, real quickly here in the last minute we have here, guys. It's Monday Night Football, and Vinny, we'll break this down on Monday.
Sure.
In full. Dallas at the Chargers. Good game on Monday night, Chris. Cowboys coming off getting shellacked by the Niners. Chargers off a bye week.
Yeah.
You guys are sitting 2 with Dallas, the favorite right now.
Gun to my head, I'd probably take Dallas, just thinking no team is as bad as they looked the week before. And but I don't know. I think the number's right. I think I made the number 2. That seems like the right number. I'd see some 2.5 showing up, but I don't know. It's a tough one to bet. But I'd probably bet the Cowboys if I had to bet.
They need to rebound, right? Herbert with the hand injury. I mean, he's going to play. I think he's fine. How did the Cowboys respond after? Absolutely getting demolished. It was billed as the two. Right? Nobody was really talking about the Eagles as much as they were talking about the Cowboys, and the Eagles are undefeated. Let's see how they respond off of what happened in San Francisco.
I am going to not like myself when this definitely bites me in the behind. The Dallas Cowboys have a massive coaching advantage in this game.
Oh,
I know.
Massive?
Yeah, they do.
Wow.
They do.
I don't know if we can be friends anymore.
I know. Look, I hated saying it, but that's why I like Dallas. And also, too, they're not as bad as they showed a week ago.
Can't be.
Can't be.
Well,
it's for sure.
And the opponent is not near what.
No, look, Herbert. You can make the argument Herbert's been the best quarterback in the NFL through the first month.
He's been great. He's absolutely their best player.
Oh yeah, you start looking at the great quarterbacks, and I know he's still a little bit young, but he's definitely in the conversation. Yeah, right below Mahomes, there's probably a group of guys.
Him and Tua are in the same spot.
Yeah,
obviously
Josh
Burrow's
Allen,
there.
Burrow. There's a couple of them, but he's definitely in that conversation.
Herbert has been awesome, and if they had any semblance of a coaching staff or a defense, we'd be talking about them as a legitimate Super Bowl contender instead of looking at them like, all right, they're the Chargers.
But they don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Massive.
Yeah, I know. Mike McCarthy.
Oof.
I can't wait for that to bite me in the behind on Monday night. I can't wait for that. That's all the time we have. This has been Sports by the Book for Chris Andrews, for Vinny Magliulo. Of course, South Point 400 on Sunday. We'll have a full breakdown on tomorrow's show, Vinny.
We'll talk about it, buddy.
For the race
Racing.
here in Vegas, down to 8 in the NASCAR playoffs. We'll see you again tomorrow at 8 in the morning. Vinny, myself, Alex White will be here at the South Point studio on Sports by the Book.